Chapter 1823. Chinyu closed his eyes, not speaking. The golden-winged rock carefully restrained its aura and fell to the side, motionless. As it sensed this, the atmosphere became a bit dignified. At this time, the little blue lamp's voice sounded out in his mind. The seventh Tao Master has arrived. Shua. Chinyu's eyes flashed open, and a sharp light flashed through them. The fact that the seventh Tao Master had arrived proved that his strategy was correct. However, it was hard to say how effective it would be. However, Chung Haoran was still here. From his attitude, one could tell a thing or two. A moment later, the Black Pearl came to report. Your Excellency, Chung Haoran is waiting outside. Chinyu said, invite him in. Yes. Black Pearl lowered her head and suppressed the trace of resentment in her eyes. She turned around and left. Her tone was stiff as she said, the Sea King asked you to enter. Her gaze swept across his body, and with a cold snort, she turned around and left. She looked cold and arrogant, but in fact, she felt bitter and helpless in her heart. She really didn't want to stay. She didn't want to see something or hear something that would completely shatter her last trace of fantasy. The scholar was once again implicated. He helplessly glanced at this flirtatious female pirate. His face was filled with helplessness. Sure enough, Master was right. Women were troublesome. Cultivation was more suitable for him. After entering the Sea King's residence, Chung Haoran found Chinyu. He cupped his hands together and said, Your Excellency Sea King, I have received a letter from Honorable Master inviting you to White Jade Capital in 3 days. Before that, I hope Your Majesty Sea King can handle the matters at hand and not delay our journey. Success. Chinyu smiled. All right, I understand. After a moment of hesitation, Chung Haoran said, There's one more thing. Although it's not worth mentioning, but, what's with the Black Pearl? I always feel that she has an inexplicable hostility towards me. Chinyu lightly said, Women, there will always be a few days in a month when their mood isn't too good. You just have to be considerate. If fellow Taoist Chung is unhappy, I will order her to come over and apologize to you personally. Chung Haoran waved his hand. There's no need. I'm not that petty. With that, he cupped his hands and turned to leave. Chinyu looked at his back. He thought that if he knew what the Black Pearl was thinking, he wouldn't have said those words. That woman's way of thinking was horrifying, and her imagination was really big. Thinking of this, Chinyu's lips couldn't help but twitch. He felt a chill crawl down his spine. He shook his head and suppressed these thoughts. His eyes brightened. 3 days from now, he would leave for White Jade Capital. Leaving aside the situation of the altar and the world it was connected to, at the very least, the step of being a spy went very smoothly. If he hadn't become the Sea King and caused such a commotion, it would have taken a long time to find the White Jade Capital. Little Blue Lamp, prepare yourself. Of course, I want to take a serious look and see just what sort of origin these so-called 9 White Jade Capitals of humanity have. Its voice was calm, but Chinyu could feel a trace of seriousness in it. As expected, the little Blue Lamp's attitude towards the 9 White Jade Capitals wasn't as calm and indifferent as it seemed on the surface. Soon, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Chinyu pretended to make a lot of arrangements. After all, he was the new Sea King. If he appeared too indifferent and ignored Sea King Island, it would arouse suspicion. Black Pearl was moved beyond words. This was because the Sea King trusted her far too much. He had actually placed her in temporary charge of all the affairs of Sea King Island, allowing her to act according to the situation. The tearful Black Pearl cried out in her heart, The Sea King is still thinking of me. So, in this battle to win the Sea King's favor, I might still have a chance. Just you wait, Chung Haoran, you smelly man who doesn't have anything. There will be a day when I take the Sea King back from your side. As Black Pearl knelt to the ground, she screamed out in her heart. Her will was firm to the extreme. Chinyu's lips twitched. He resisted the urge to beat her to death. This woman's expression was far too disgusting. He stood up and left Sea King Island, fearing that if he was any slower, he would change his mind. Chung Haoran was filled with awe. He thought that the Sea King was truly worthy of his reputation. He was extremely decisive. When he abandoned his family's foundation, he did so without the slightest hesitation. It had to be known that he was going to White Jade capital, and in the future he would have to participate in the struggle between the great Tao masters that involved the source of the world. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that his future was uncertain. Even in this situation, he was still able to display such a resolute heart. Farewell. Out of the courtesy of a scholar, he cupped his hands together and left. But in Black Pearl's eyes, this was a blatant provocation. When his figure vanished, Black Pearl stood up. She clenched her teeth and roared, "You bastard!" Outside Sea King Island, the scholar's figure suddenly staggered, and he nearly fell to the ground. He fiercely turned his head and stared in the direction of Sea King Island. His eyes widened, filled with shock and alarm. It was as if he had been startled by something. Just now, what did he hear? He couldn't believe it. Chinyu lightly said, "She is just a woman who is immersed in her own world. She is stupid and ignorant. Fellow Taoist Chung, you shouldn't lower yourself to her level, right?" Chung Haoran was silent. Although he wanted to say that he absolutely couldn't tolerate this, he looked at Chinyu, who seemed as if he didn't have a single leaf on him. He clenched his teeth in his heart, but didn't reveal anything on his face. Of course, she is just a woman. Chung Haoran's smile stiffened. I have to endure. With his intelligence, he immediately realized why Black Pearl had such an attitude when she faced him. It was clear that Chinyu was the male lead of this story. I can't be compared to him. If Chinyu can display such a nonchalant attitude, then I can definitely do the same. But I'm really angry. Why is Chinyu the male lead? How am I bad? Chinyu smiled. Fellow Taoist Chung has a broad mind. Then let's go. Chung Haoran glanced at him and nodded. Okay. He lifted a hand and punched out. Space shook and great waves rose up on the surface of the sea, as if it had been attacked by the shock waves. In the blink of an eye, billowing waves swept out in all directions, crashing down on Sea King Island. He was clearly taking this chance to vent his discontent. Chinyu pretended not to see this. Soon, where Chung Haoran's fist landed, space violently shook and a portal appeared. It was pure white like jade and emitted an ancient aura. The little blue lamp didn't move at all. This meant that the portal in front of him didn't pose any threat to Chinyu. He stepped forwards, pushed it open, and stepped inside. Chung Haoran took a deep breath. He had to admit that in terms of courage, and other aspects, he was far from being comparable to Chinyu. Perhaps this was the key reason why he was still stuck at the half-step eternal realm, while Chin, you had already stepped into the Joss Flame Great Tao and become a powerhouse qualified to cooperate with his honorable master. His eyes flashed. It was as if he had pushed open a door. When Chin Yu's feet touched the ground, he had arrived at White Jade Capital. This so-called White Jade Capital, in truth, it wasn't anything new. It was still floating above the white clouds and was filled with an immortal atmosphere. At first glance, one could tell that it was a land of immortals. But when Chinyu was on the 13th floor, he had seen it. Well, perhaps the 13th floor itself was a replica of White Jade Capital. But on the surface, he revealed a bit of admiration and a bit of dread. This was the normal expression a newcomer should have. The 7th Tao Master stood across from him. He saw all of the subtle changes in Chin Yu's expression and faintly smiled. Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, we meet again. This is White Jade Capital. What do you think? Chin Yu took a deep breath and slowly said, a land of immortals is nothing more than this. White Jade Capital, the rumors are not as good as seeing it. It is truly worthy of being the strongest existence that rules over this world. Everyone loved to hear compliments, and the 7th Tao Master was no exception. He reached out a hand and said, Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, please follow me. Chung Haoran had already walked out and respectfully bowed to his honorable master. As he heard the conversation between the two, he had a different feeling in his heart. He had interacted with Luo Guan for some time and had a rough understanding of his personality. He wasn't someone who was easy to talk to. But now that he was facing his honorable master, he was able to casually praise him. The key was that he gave off a feeling that his words came from his heart. This ability isn't ordinary. As I thought, I'm not just a little bit lacking. There are still many areas that I need to learn. White Jade Capital's design and style were almost the same as the 13th floors. If one had to point out a difference, it would be that it was much larger and almost covered the entire sea of clouds. There was no end in sight. There were many tyrannical auras hidden within. Cheney didn't probe them, but he could sense at least several dozen auras at the Emperor realm. Moreover, some of them were extremely tyrannical. Suddenly, the golden-winged rock that had been standing on Qin Yu's shoulder opened its eyes. A cold halo appeared in its golden eyes. It looked up and locked onto a white cloud above. A giant eye was revealed through a crack in the clouds, and its cold vertical pupils were locked onto Qin Yu. The golden-winged rock let out a cry that conveyed irritation and anger. Qin Yu glanced at the seventh Tao Master, who was silently smiling beside him. He suddenly waved his arm and said, "If you want to stretch your muscles, then go ahead." The golden-winged rock soared into the sky, its body rapidly expanding. In the blink of an eye, it was tens of thousands of miles long and blotted out the sky. Strong winds tore apart the clouds, revealing the python hidden within. Its entire body was covered in black scales, and it constantly flicked out its tongue. Its eyes were icy cold. As it stared at the golden-winged rock that soared into the skies, its eyes became even colder. But there wasn't the least bit of joy in it. Its giant tail swept out. In the blink of an eye, the two giant beasts began to slaughter each other. The golden-winged rock was fighting in an away game, but it didn't fear the python at all. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A heaven-shaking explosion spread out in all directions like rolling thunder. Qin Yu's complexion was calm. He didn't care about the gazes that were gathering around him. Since he had been invited to White Jade Capital today, the suspicion of his identity had been cleared. The reason why this scene had appeared was more like an explanation the seventh Tao Master was giving to everyone. Of course, it couldn't be avoided that there was a bit of a show of strength hidden within. Tao Master, this beast is a powerful monster that I subdued when I entered a different world. It has a cruel nature, and if it has offended you in any way, I ask that you don't mind. The seventh Tao Master smiled. He didn't speak, but his voice directly sounded out in Qin Yu's mind. I should be the one apologizing to fellow Taoist Luo Guan. But the matter of the altar in the Sea of Chaos is far too important. Even though I am the Tao Master of White Jade Capital, it is not good for me to act arbitrarily. Although he didn't speak too clearly, this was at least an explanation. This was a good sign. Qin Yu lightly said, "I can understand." But the truth was that deep within his heart, he wasn't as calm as he seemed on the surface. The little blue lamp was quietly investigating White Jade Capital. It was likely that it would obtain some unexpected results. Moreover, what was more important was that this sort of investigation was like roasting a sweet potato over a barrel of dynamite. If Qin Yu wasn't careful, he would be directly blown away. This was White Jade Capital. The seventh Tao Master was strong, but as for how strong he was, Qin Yu didn't know, and he didn't want to know. Luckily, there hadn't been any problems up until now. As for the great battle in front of him, although White Jade Capital's python was ridiculously strong, it was naturally restrained by the golden-winged rock. Moreover, the golden-winged rock's strength wasn't any weaker than the python's. Victory was only a matter of time. With a miserable cry, the python's abdomen was torn open by sharp claws. A terrifying wound appeared and blood rained down. One could clearly see the python's organs. The golden-winged rock didn't show mercy. It spread its wings, and countless feathers appeared. They howled out like arrows, wanting to nail the python to the ground. Humph! With a cold snort, space shook. All of the feathers that shot toward the python were swallowed up. In the next moment, a dreadful sword cry rang out. Qin Yu lifted his hand and slashed down. A terrifying sword intent surged out like a raging sea, piercing through the galaxy. The figure that had just appeared had a look of shock and anger on its face. It lifted its hand and slapped out. But with a heaven-shaking explosion, it was sent flying backwards, crashing through several grand buildings that were built between the white clouds. Space suddenly fell silent. Countless eyes fell onto the mountain and river sword in Qin Yu's hand. Their eyes narrowed. What a strong sword intent. Moreover, the most terrifying aspect was that there was a layer of flames burning on the blade. These were the flames of Joss flames. As expected, this was a powerhouse that had stepped onto the Joss flame Great Tao. Moreover, he was close to completely igniting the Great Tao. Even in white jade capital, such a powerhouse had the qualifications to be respected. Qin Yu had no expression. He coldly said, "Tao Master, what is the meaning of this?" The seventh Tao Master said, "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, please calm your anger. This was just an accident." His face darkened. "Mok Na, hurry and apologize to fellow Taoist Luo Guan. Your actions just now were far too disrespectful." Whoosh! A figure flew back and landed in front of Qin Yu. It was the powerhouse that had tried to suppress the golden-winged rock just now. He seemed as good as new, but there was a wound between his eyebrows. Dark red beads of blood constantly flowed out from it. Perhaps it was because he had suffered additional damage from the Joss flames, but the wound still hadn't healed. His face darkened with anger. As he heard the seventh Tao Master's words, his complexion changed. He took a deep breath and bowed. "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, Mok Na wishes to express my apologies for the risks I took before. I hope that you can accept it." Qin Yu looked at him without expression. "I can treat this as a misunderstanding, but if there is a second time, my sword will definitely kill." Mok Na clenched his teeth. He glanced at Qin Yu and said, "Tao Master, this disciple has personally seen fellow Taoist Luo Guan today. I need to return and report to my honorable master, so I will not stay any longer. Farewell." He turned and stepped away. The python quickly swam over and carried him away. The seventh Tao Master looked around. Fellow Taoist Luo Guan will represent the seventh white jade capital and enter the sea of chaos altar. Does anyone have any objections to this? There was silence. The seventh Tao Master smiled. "Very good. Then it's decided." A happy light flashed in his eyes. This Luo Guan was far stronger than he had imagined. With this person's help, he would surely have a great harvest in this struggle for the world source energy. Moreover, the secrets hidden within that altar were likely far greater than what the white jade capital knew. Perhaps this was his chance to reach the Tao. Chapter 1824. Chung Haoran said, "Your Excellency Sea King, before entering the Void Realm, I ask that you stay here. There are many rules in White Jade Capital, and there are many secret places that even I can't get close to. I hope Your Excellency the Sea King doesn't wander around without permission during this period of time to avoid unnecessary trouble. Otherwise, even if Master appears, it will be difficult for him." Qin Yu had a calm expression. "All right." After watching Chung Haoran leave, he pushed open the door. In front of him was an independent palace that occupied an extremely large area. "Welcome home, honored guest." Reflected in his eyes was a group of young and beautiful female cultivators. They respectfully bowed, each of them graceful and incomparably beautiful. Qin Yu waved his hand. "Leave." The female cultivators were surprised, but they didn't dare to question him. They bowed their heads and left in a single file. When there was only Qin Yu left in the hall, he lifted a hand and pointed out a finger. Layers of fluctuations and ripples spread out, sweeping through every corner of the hall. After determining that there wasn't anything wrong, he clenched his hand. Space trembled. The space within the hall was sealed, isolated from the outside world, and unable to be sensed. Qin Yu took a deep breath and slowly said, "Little blue lamp." There was a long period of silence. Just as Qin Yu thought that he wouldn't be able to obtain a response because he was in White Jade Capital, a thought fluctuation spread into his mind. "Qin Yu, I'm still confirming this. But as of now, the ambition and strength of the human cultivation system far surpass my expectations." Qin Yu said, "Good. After you confirm it, give me an answer as soon as possible." His voice was calm, and his expression was dignified. As he thought, the 9 white jade capitals corresponded to 9 blazing suns. This matter wasn't ordinary at all. There must be something else hidden within. The human cultivation system. Qin Yu's thoughts raced. After several breaths of time, he let out a deep breath and slowly pressed down. He would temporarily leave these matters to the little blue lamp. What he needed to face now was how to obtain even more of the world's source energy. The 7th Tao Master was right. Because their cultivation systems were different and they walked different paths, he wasn't indispensable to the world's source energy. But there was one point that the 7th Tao Master hadn't calculated. Qin Yu had taken the risk of crossing the eternal sea and arriving at White Jade Capital. His original goal was to find the source of the dead world and help the Joss Flame Spirit Qin Yu transform. This would also accelerate the process of igniting his own Joss Flame Great Tao. Thus, there was no way he would let go of the source of the world. However, even if Qin Yu smoothly entered the world connected to the altar, wanting to safely obtain the world's source energy wasn't a simple matter. The 7th Tao Master's strength was too strong. Once he noticed it, things would become troublesome. Moreover, there was more than one White Jade Capital, and so was the Pathmaster. Qin Yu was secretly seizing the source energy of the world. This was the same as stealing food from the mouths of these Tao Masters. Wouldn't they be afraid of a group attack? Therefore, he had to be careful in this matter and think of a foolproof plan. What should he do? A thoughtful expression crossed Qin Yu's face. At the same time, far away in the world, in another White Jade Capital in the clouds, Mok Na knelt down respectfully. Master, I've returned. Across from him, a middle-aged Taoist wearing a 7-starred robe opened his eyes. How is it? The 7th Tao Master has indeed been found. A powerhouse from a different world will represent him to enter the world connected to the altar. There shouldn't be any problems with his identity. After a brief pause, Mok Na continued to say, according to Honorable Master's orders, this disciple intentionally probed this person's cultivation. He is a sword cultivator that has nearly ignited the Joss Flame Great Tao. His strength is terrifying to the extreme, and this disciple is not his match. A sharp light flashed in the 3rd Tao Master's eyes. Even you aren't his match? 7 Taoist luck isn't bad to have found a useful person. But in this struggle for the world's source energy, I must obtain it. He lifted a hand. Space shook and a drop of blood appeared. Just as it appeared, the drop of blood violently shook. An invisible strength constantly impacted the surroundings, causing space to distort. Roar, roar. At this moment, one could even hear roars in their ears. Mok Na's eyes widened. Honorable Master, this is the 3rd Tao Master said. Many years ago, when I was exploring a different world, I found an evil god in a strange land. I killed it and refined it to obtain its blood essence. Fuse this drop of blood essence into your body. At a critical moment, it can help you incarnate into an evil god. You will possess all the might of an evil god for a short period of time. It will be enough to help you reverse the situation. Mok Na revealed a happy expression. Honorable Master, rest assured that this disciple will do his best and not disappoint your expectations. Half a month later, within the 7th White Jade Capital, Qin Yu's eyes flashed open. With a flick of his sleeves, the shackles were lifted. In the next moment, the doors to the hall opened from the outside, and Cheng Haoran stepped in. Your Excellency Sea King, Honorable Master requests your presence. All right. Qin Yu stood up. He followed Cheng Haoran to where the 7th Tao Master lived. This was the highest point of the White Jade Capital. Here, there was a tall building made entirely of white jade that seemed to soar into the sea of stars. One could pick up a star with just a lift of one's hand. The 7th Tao Master turned and said, Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, you should understand why I asked you to come here today, right? Qin Yu said, When will I leave? 2 hours from now. The 7th Tao Master smiled. I'm not afraid of fellow Taoist Luo Guan knowing, but there is competition between the 9 White Jade Capitals. This journey involves the source energy of the world and is something that we Tao Masters must cultivate with. Thus, there will definitely be competition. Today, I will clearly inform fellow Taoist Luo Guan that after entering the altar, there is no need for any scruples in your heart. If anyone tries to stop you from seizing the source energy of the world, you can directly kill them. Qin Yu frowned, silent. The seventh Tao Master said, I will bear all the consequences and troubles that arise. I will not allow fellow Taoist Luo Guan to be implicated in the slightest. That's good, Qin Yu said in a low voice. Moreover, if possible, I would like to ask the Tao Master to give me a list of competitors. I believe that the Tao Master should have already prepared these things. The seventh Tao Master took out a jade slip. The information that fellow Taoist Luo Guan wishes to know is in this jade slip. Qin Yu reached out and took it. He probed it with his divine sense. After several breaths of time, a sharp light flashed in his eyes, and he crushed the jade slip. I have no more questions. A look of appreciation appeared on the seventh Tao Master's face. Sheng Haoran will go with fellow Taoist Luo Guan. I know that my request might be a bit excessive, but I am very satisfied with this disciple. I hope that fellow Taoist Luo Guan can take care of him and ensure that he returns unscathed. Sheng Haoran frowned. Honorable Master, this disciple can protect himself. The seventh Tao Master coldly sneered. If you hold on to such thoughts, you will definitely die in that world. Remember, listen to Luo Guan's arrangements and do not act on your own. Otherwise, I will severely punish you. Sheng Haoran bitterly smiled and respectfully nodded. Since his honorable master said this, he must be serious. He didn't want to make things difficult for himself. Qin Yu nodded. Tao Master, rest assured that I will ensure Sheng Haoran's safety to the best of my abilities. But if I asked the Tao Master to understand. The seventh Tao Master nodded. Of course. He stood up. It's almost time. Let's go. I will personally send you to the altar in the depths of the Void Realm. He flicked his sleeves, and an invisible strength was released. The three of them instantly vanished. When they reappeared, they were in the Void Realm. Looking all around them, there was nothing but endless darkness and deathly silence. Qin Yu swept his eyes around. He could feel the chaos here, and a dignified look subconsciously appeared on his face. This place was already deep within the Void Realm. Or, it was more accurate to say that this place was enough to cause a true sovereign to be lost in it, unable to escape for all eternity. The seventh Tao Master was able to directly bring them here. Although it seemed like a casual action, it had revealed an extremely potent strength. To accurately determine a location in the Sea of Chaos, while also bringing two people with him. This was an extremely difficult task. But it was clear that to the seventh Tao Master, this was an extremely simple matter. Let's wait a moment. The ones they were waiting for were naturally the other White Jade Capital's Tao Masters. Qin Yu had a dignified expression. The Void Realm suddenly shook. A middle-aged Taoist with a jade-like face and wearing a 7-star Taoist robe walked out first. 3 people followed behind him. One of them was Mok Na, who had been struck by Qin Yu's sword in the past. Mok Na glanced over, his eyes icy cold. Third Tao Master. The 7th Tao Master cupped his hands together. The middle-aged Taoist smiled. 7th Tao, long time no see. The two of them didn't exchange pleasantries. They only nodded and then separated. First, this wasn't the place for them to speak. Second, there wasn't much time to speak because the other Tao Masters also arrived at this time. Qin Yu stood behind the 7th Tao Master, watching as the other 8 Tao Masters arrived. When the 9th Tao Master arrived, his heart shook and he subconsciously restrained his aura. This was because Qin Yu could feel the aura of the wild and desolate races from the 9th Tao Master. In other words, this 9th Tao Master was the master of the White Jade Capital in the skies above the desolate domain. A strange fluctuation erupted from his body. It was the little blue lamp. Qin Yu stiffened. Tiny beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his breath caught in his throat. The 9th Tao Master who had just arrived looked at him. After sizing him up for a moment, he slowly said, "You don't look familiar." The 7th Tao Master smiled. Fellow Taoist Luo Guan comes from the seaside realm. He was invited by me to enter the altar to explore. The ninth Tao Master's eyes flashed. He nodded and didn't say anything else. He looked away, but Chinyu always felt that this person seemed to have vaguely sensed something just now. It was just that he didn't know why, but he didn't reveal it. Standing behind the ninth Tao Master was a young man. He was handsome and feminine, almost like a woman. His eyes were icy cold, as if they had existed for eternity. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of emotion coming from his icy eyes. Now, his eyes swept over Chinyu without pausing. But this brief gaze caused Chinyu's heart to turn cold, and he became extremely vigilant. The seventh Tao Master's voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. Be careful of the person behind the ninth Tao Master. He is prison. If you encounter him, do your best not to come into conflict with him. Chinyu silently nodded. He felt even more dread in his heart. In the jade slip he had seen before, there was a detailed record of this prison. To sum it up, he was extremely strong and strange. He had once faced a Tao Master-level powerhouse and was able to escape unscathed. And beside him, Chung Haoran already had a dignified expression. His eyes were filled with a deep dread. Since everyone has arrived, there is no need to delay any further. You and I will join forces to summon the altar. The first Tao Master slowly said. His voice was calm and gentle, but as it fell into the ears of everyone present, there was an unquestionable feeling to it. It was dignified and lofty. Okay. The other Tao Masters nodded. In the next moment, the 9 Tao Masters lifted their hands and pointed down. Light shined out from their fingertips, illuminating their bodies. Within the light, runes began to rapidly appear. As they circulated, they revealed a mysterious and mystical feeling. Rumble, rumble. Within the void boundary in front of them, there was a deep rumbling sound. The phantom of a boundless sea appeared in front of everyone. This was the manifestation of the chaotic sea. At this moment, raging waves were surging on the surface of the sea. An extremely terrifying shockwave erupted from within the waves. The chaotic sea resisted, suppressing the summons of the 9 Tao Masters and preventing the altar from appearing. It was as if there was an extremely formidable existence that had given it this will in the distant past. But when the 9 Tao Masters joined forces, just what sort of formidable strength was this? It was simply unimaginable. The phantom of the chaotic sea began to shake even more violently. An incomparably massive altar gradually appeared from within, becoming increasingly clear. Suddenly, with a loud explosion, the sea surface was torn apart by a formidable strength, and the altar emerged from within. It was pitch black, as if it had been directly refined from an incomparably massive piece of black jade. On its surface, there were specks of light that constantly flickered, giving off a dreamlike feeling. At this moment, Qin Yu's expression was calm. But deep in his heart, there was a strange feeling. It was like there was some sort of connection between him and this altar. It was faint and subtle, but it truly existed. This was beyond his expectations. Thoughts raced through his mind. As Qin Yu was thinking about where this feeling came from, the altar that broke through the sea began to rapidly solidify from its illusory state. And as it solidified, the feeling between Qin Yu and the altar became increasingly clear. This absolutely wasn't an illusion. However, he had to confirm once more, was this feeling unique to him, or was it something that everyone else felt? This was extremely important. He had to confirm it. Set. The first Tao Master shouted out loud. In the void, there was nothing substantial in the void boundary. At this time, massive amounts of rules began to reform, covering the altar and forming a powerful seal. Only like this could the altar be temporarily kept within the sea of chaos. Otherwise, it would be submerged into the seabed in the next moment. According to our research of the altar, the exploration of the world connected to this altar will last for a month. When the time limit approaches, everyone must return to this altar. Otherwise, there's a chance that something beyond our control will occur. The first Tao Master swept his eyes around. Does anyone have any objections to this? It was clear that the first Tao Master was the true leader of the 9 white jade capitals. In response to his question, the other Tao Masters nodded one after another. Good, then it is decided. The first Tao Master said, "Now, I and the others will open the altar. Do not resist, and allow yourselves to be sucked in by the altar's strength. Then, you will be able to enter that dead world." Finally, let me remind you all, although this world is dead, there's still a massive number of living beings living within it. Although they are weak, it is best not to approach them. The first Tao Master didn't explain too much about this, but looking at how the other Tao Masters tacitly agreed, it was possible that the living beings living in this dead world had some secrets on their bodies. The 7th Tao Master turned around. "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, you can all go in. Take care of yourselves." His eyes fell on Cheng Haoren. "As for you, remember my words. Do not act recklessly and protect yourself." "Understand, Honorable Master." Cheng Haoren revealed a helpless expression. In the next moment, the swallowing strength from the altar spread out. The 9 Tao Masters focused their minds and isolated themselves from the outside world. Everyone else flew up towards a giant black altar in front of them. Chapter 1825. In a world of ice and snow, one's breath turned to ice. Everywhere one looked, one could only see extreme cold. Space trembled, and one figure after another quietly emerged from within. Qin Yu's complexion changed. He grabbed Cheng Haoren, and the two of them stormed backwards. In the next moment, the snow on the ground where they were just standing exploded apart, turning into powder. A terrifying strength violently shook the air. Everyone's complexions changed. They subconsciously scattered, their eyes filled with vigilance as they coldly locked onto the two figures. But when they saw who had attacked, their complexions changed, and there was even more dread in their eyes. Kuei. This time, the 9th Tao Master had only brought him along. But no one thought there was anything wrong with this. This was because Kuei alone was enough to cause all the cultivators of White Jade Capital to feel a deep sense of pressure. Cheng Haoren was shocked and angry. He roared out, Kuei, have you gone mad? Why did you attack the two of us?" But unfortunately, his anger wasn't able to cause any scruples to appear in his heart. His eyes were still icy cold. He lifted a hand and pressed down. The temperature in the air crazily plummeted once more. Suddenly, there was the sound of something freezing in the air. Qin Yu punched out, shattering the freezing strength around him. "Let's go." With a shout, he turned and stepped forwards. Cheng Haoren was unwilling, but when he thought of his honorable master's orders, he could only grit his teeth and follow behind. The two of them disappeared from sight, one in front and one behind. Kuei frowned. This was because at this time, a figure was blocking his path. The first Tao Master's disciple said, Kuei, no matter why you attacked, the reason we entered this world is to search for its source. To avoid any accidents, it is best not to alarm the native life forms of this world. Halfway through his words, he revealed a look of anger. In the next moment, powerful fluctuations of strength erupted, earth-shattering. Bang! A huge boom rang out as the first Tao Lord disciple was sent flying through the air, blood spraying out of his eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and mouth. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were wide with shock, fury, and astonishment. First, he never thought that Kuei would dare to attack him. Second, Kuei was far stronger than he imagined. After sending that person flying with a punch, Quan Lu did not hesitate at all. He took a step forward and chased after him, leaving the people from the White Jade capital frowning. However, only they knew what they were thinking. After all, Tuan Lu was too powerful. Now that he had taken the initiative to attack the cultivators of the 7th White Jade capital, it was a good thing for them. Mo, Kuna said faintly, "Everyone, this matter might be related to the personal grudges between the two White Jade capitals. We shouldn't interfere. Let's get back to work." Then he cupped his hands and said, We will take our leave." He turned around and disappeared with the other two cultivators. "Let's go. Chiu and I has a perverse and eccentric personality. If he causes trouble, there will naturally be Tao masters who will punish him. We don't have to interfere. Finding the origin of heaven and earth is more important." Shua, one by one, the figures left. And at this time, Qin Yu and Cheng Haoren were hiding from Prison's pursuit. The good news was that because the first Tao Master's disciple had stepped forward to obstruct them, Prison's pursuit was affected and the two of them temporarily escaped. But the problem was that Qin Yu could sense them clearly. Prison could still vaguely sense them. As long as he wasn't afraid of wasting time, he could gradually lock onto them. And the problem should be with him. As expected, the ninth Tao Master had discovered something. Prison's actions were the best evidence. But why did he wait until now? When the 9 Tao Masters gathered together, as long as the 9th Tao Master spoke, Qin Yu wouldn't have been able to escape even if he had wings. Unless he had other thoughts in his heart and didn't want the other Tao Masters to know of Qin Yu's secret. Cheng Haoren said, "Your Excellency Sea King, are we going to keep hiding?" A sharp light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. He paused for a moment and said, "Let's separate." Cheng Haoren frowned. Qin Yu lightly said, "Qiu Qian came for me. If you leave by yourself, he won't chase you down. The Tao Master sent us into this world in order to seize the source of the world, so we cannot be delayed by Qiu Qian." Cheng Haoren hesitated. "Your Excellency, Sea King wants to deal with Prison alone?" Qin Yu said, "He is strong, but I don't lack the strength to resist him. If you stay here, I will only be distracted." Without giving Cheng Haoren a chance to speak, Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and sent him flying away. "We will meet again in the future." Shua. His figure flickered and he vanished from sight. And just as Qin Yu left, space shook and shattered. Prison, wrapped in endless killing intent, walked out from within. His icy cold eyes swept over him and his body tensed. Cheng Haoren immediately looked away. He punched space and stepped in once more. Cheng Haoren let out a long breath, his back slightly wet. Indeed, Luo Wan was right. Prison was indeed coming for him. But why? I am a direct disciple of the dignified 7th Tao Master, a powerhouse that is a half step into the eternal realm. And yet, you just coldly glanced at me and then left? Who were you looking down on? How infuriating. Cheng Haoren's face was cloudy and uncertain. He wanted to chase after Prison and give him a good beating. He wanted to let this brat know that he hadn't spent all these years studying in vain. Although he hadn't been able to read a beautiful jade from books, he had still managed to cultivate his own skills. His blood boiled and his heart raced. But in the end, Cheng Haoren sighed, a dejected look on his face. Forget it. The book said that a man must know how to judge the situation and know how to be flexible. Qin Yu was being chased by Prison and could be considered crippled. Then, he would have to shoulder teachers' expectations by himself. So, he had to work even harder. He couldn't be dragged down by these matters and ruin teachers' plans. Yes, that was it. Cheng Haoren deeply felt that he had to endure humiliation. He felt much better and turned to leave. Shua. Space shook and Qin Yu walked out. He had already entered the extreme north of this world. The temperature in the air was terrifyingly low. They wrapped around Qin Yu's body, penetrating through every pore. Even with Qin Yu's cultivation, he could still feel a stabbing pain in his body. Qin Yu took a deep breath and didn't continue running away. He turned around and calmly adjusted his breathing, his expression calm. No matter why Prison wanted to kill him, if Qin Yu wanted to smoothly carry out his original plan, he would have to deal with him first. With a wave of his arm, the golden-winged rock shot into the skies. With a cry, it returned to its original form. The skies darkened and strong winds stirred up between the heavens and earth. Bang! Space shattered and Prison walked out. He didn't care about the golden-winged rock circling above his head. His icy cold eyes fell on Qin Yu. His gaze was like an invisible saber that instantly pierced through his body and soul, nailing him to the ground. Prison. Qin Yu loudly said, I am Luo Guan. I was invited by the 7th Dao Master to participate in today's matter. I have never seen you before, and there is no conflict between me and the 9th Dao Master. Why do you want to kill me? Prison was startled. He never imagined that Qin Yu would stop on his own initiative and then ask such a question. He paused for a moment, but didn't answer. He stepped forwards. Bang! The entire world suddenly sank. In the area where the two of them stood, in a radius of 1,000 miles, several enormous ice mountains instantly collapsed and fell apart, crushed by the terrifying power. And this was only the aftermath of the shock waves spreading out. As for Qin Yu, who was truly withstanding this suppressive strength, his current situation could be imagined. He frowned. He lifted a hand and grasped forwards. The mountain river sword appeared, and he slashed forwards. The suppressive strength was torn apart by the sword aura. Prison approached, and Qin Yu raised his sword to meet him. The two of them moved like bolts of lightning as they tangled together. Every time they collided, there would be a heaven-shaking explosion. A terrifying strength erupted, sweeping away everything around them. The icy cold and deathly silent world of ice and snow was stirred up, boiling over. As for the killing that came from the extreme north, the commotion it caused was far too great. It inevitably alarmed the native life forms that still remained in this world. In a massive tent made from several layers of bee skin, a bonfire blazed. Special beast oil was added to the fire, and it emitted a pungent smell, like a mixture of horse dung and horse urine. But as the shadow of death shrouded them, the Heavenly Spirit clan had no other choice. In these past years, the outside world had become increasingly cold. This dead world was slowly losing its last bit of warmth, and they could only struggle to survive. Suddenly, the tent was pushed open from outside, and a large man rushed in. His entire body was wrapped in a beast skin coat, revealing only a small crack to see where he was going. As he walked in, a cold air rushed into the tent. The burning bonfire dimmed a great deal. Great Tribe Elder, there are powerful fluctuations of strength in the northern ice and snow region. The large man knelt and bowed. He pulled down his thick leather hat, revealing a face that was red from the cold. At this time, his face was filled with excitement. The Great Tribe Elder's stooped body straightened. A sharp light appeared in his dim yellow eyes. "Abu, are you sure?" Abu said, "The snow spirit insects that our clan raises are extremely sensitive to the northern snowy plains. They have already started moving, so we can basically confirm it." "Very good." The Great Tribe Elder stood up, a look of joy on his thin and withered face. "Send out all the priests and drive the creatures of the snowy plains to hunt. These foreign invaders, their flesh and blood, their strength, will continue to exist for our clan. We will provide strength." Abu stood up and heavily patted his chest. "Yes, Great Tribe Elder, please rest assured. We will definitely bring back our prey." "No." The Great Tribe Elder stood up. Within his body, crackling sounds came from his bones. His entire person instantly became younger. His thin and withered body became strong and healthy once more. He was even stronger than Abu in front of him. "Great Tribe Elder." Abu's eyes widened. "I don't have much time left. I originally thought that I would have to hide in the tent and suffer until death arrived. But now, let me take action. This is the last time I can hunt for the clan. This is also the last thing I can do for you." The Great Tribe Elder's voice was deep and resounding. At this moment, he didn't seem old or tired at all. He was like a man in his 30s, at the peak of his prime. His eyes shone brightly, and his aura was extremely powerful. Abu's eyes were red because he knew that the Great Tribe Elder's current state was because he had stimulated the last of his life force. Once this life force was exhausted, the Great Tribe Elder would die. "Yes." He thumped his chest and then turned to leave. Soon, black figures walked out from the Heavenly Spirit Race's camp. Their bodies were wrapped in thick beast fur coats as they silently bowed towards the Great Tribe Elder. "Let's go." The group of people stood up and walked towards the northern snowy plains, vanishing into the wind and snow. And at this time, Qin Yu's battle with Prison was still continuing. Prison was truly strong. In fact, he was even stronger than the jade slip that the seventh Tao Master had given Qin Yu. Moreover, what he cultivated should be some isotribute cultivation method. Now that he was in this already dead world, not only could he adapt to the environment here, but his cultivation had even increased to a great degree. Moreover, Prison was extremely strong to begin with. The reason Qin Yu was able to persist until now, without using any lit Joss flames, was all because of the cosmic Sea-Cross spell. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have been able to last. As for why he didn't use burning Joss flames, he didn't have much left. He had to save it for a truly critical moment. Qin Yu, there are some changes in the snowy plains. The little blue lamp's voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. Qin Yu's mountain and river sword came slashing down. At the same time, he drew back, avoiding Prison's attack. His complexion was a bit ugly. This fellow was indeed a madman. He didn't retreat at all, and instead used a suicidal method. What changes? Some things are awakening. Qin Yu frowned. There are other life forms in this snowy plains. He hadn't sensed the slightest aura of life before. They aren't ordinary life forms. Rather, they are spirit bodies condensed by the extreme cold. They are one with the snowy plains, so it is difficult to sense their existence. The little blue lamp slowly said, "Before this, these spirit bodies were in a dormant state. It doesn't seem like they were awakened by your battle." Qin Yu said, "Are you saying that they were awakened by someone else?" "It's possible." Qin Yu instantly thought back to the warning the first Tao Master gave him when he entered the altar not too long ago. The native life forms of this world. Could it be related to them? Are these spirit bodies strong? Individually, they aren't strong. In fact, they can even be called weak. They can only cause a small drop in the temperature within a very small range. The little blue lamp paused for a moment. But there are many of them. Qin Yu lifted the mountain and river sword. He was sent flying backwards, crashing into an iceberg. His body tore through the layers of ice, causing massive cracks to appear. During this process, he clenched his teeth and roared, "So?" The little blue lamp said, "If there isn't an accident, this snowy plains will soon be sealed in ice. All life will be frozen here. Can you trap Prison?" "Yes." Qin Yu's eyes brightened. "Very good." Bang! He shot into the skies and slashed down with his hand. Prison, don't run away. Today you and I will fight." The little blue lamp said, "You don't seem worried about yourself." "Of course. You are a great son, so how could I possibly be frozen to death here?" Qin Yu laughed and slashed down with a mountain and river sword. Thunder billowed above the snowy plains. But in this terrifying battle, the sound of the wind gradually died down. What followed was a terrifyingly low temperature. The thick layer of snow gradually turned from a crystalline white to a pale blue. It was like a crystal, adding a touch of beauty to this dark and pale world. But this beauty actually represented absolute death and destruction. Chapter 1826. Tuan Lu cultivated the 9 extreme frost art and was extremely sensitive to the changes in the cold of the world. When the spirit body in the depths of the snowfield awakened, he immediately sensed that something was wrong. But Tuan Lu wasn't worried because of this. This was because the snowfield was even colder. With the descent of extreme cold, perhaps he would be frozen in the end, but this Luo Guan in front of him would definitely be unable to hold on before him. That would be the chance to end this chase. So, the current situation was that both sides were well aware of the changes occurring in the snowfield. But they pretended to be ignorant of it and waited for the other side to make a mistake. Simply put, this was a competition of endurance and freezing resistance. It all depended on who could last until the end. Tuan Lu was confident in this, and the truth was that this should be the case. But Qin Yu was in existence with a great son following him. If he wanted to freeze to death, it would indeed be an extremely difficult matter. The slaughter continued, and the temperature continued to fall. The pure white snowfield gradually revealed a dazzling blue color. Beneath the dim light above, it still reflected a dazzling brilliance. There was a special sense of beauty to it. The heavenly spirit race's great elder led the remaining 87 priests of the tribe to hide deep in the snowfield. As he felt the powerful fluctuations of auras coming from afar, a dignified expression appeared on his face. A boundless cultivation and a vibrant life aura were recklessly released. The intruders that appeared today were extremely strong. But the more powerful a life form was, the more life force they could bring to the heavenly spirit race. At the very least, they could increase the chances of a baby born this year by more than 50%. Boo respectfully said, "Great Elder, the priests have already awakened all the spirits in the depths of the snowfield. Their strength will be completely released within an hour, and the snowfield of the extreme north will be sealed in ice, turning it into a life-forbidden zone." The great elder nodded. "Boo, escort the priests away. I will stay here." Boo took a deep breath. He respectfully fell to his knees and kowtowed. "Yes, great elder. I hope that I can see you again." Behind him, a group of tired priests with dim eyes also knelt to the ground, sorrow on their faces. Even someone as powerful as the great tribe elder was about to die. Didn't this mean that the countless years of struggle that the heavenly spirit tribe had fought to survive would all be for naught? Their tribe would also disappear from this frozen world forever, becoming a speck of dust that no one knew about in history. The grand elder turned. As if he could sense the thoughts of the people in front of him, he said, "Years ago, the Almighty Sovereign left behind a prophecy before he left. A new sovereign would come to save our heavenly spirit race, to welcome new life from destruction. It is precisely because of this hope that our ancestors have persevered until today and have never given up. So, I want all of you to remember, no matter when, you must always have hope in your hearts, and you must absolutely not give up. My heavenly spirit race will definitely be able to wait until the new sovereign descends and complete his nirvanic rebirth." "Yes," Abu said loudly. The eyes of the priests were a bit dim. This prophecy was the key to supporting the heavenly spirit race. It had been passed down from generation to generation, and it was the final ray of light in the hearts of the heavenly spirit race. When they were young, the priests believed this without a doubt. They believed that as long as they persevered, there would surely be hope. But their long lives had been filled with torment, extreme cold, and pain. The light in their hearts had gradually dimmed, on the verge of being extinguished. Did the prophecy really exist? Or was it only a beautiful lie that the ancestors of the heavenly spirit race had weaved in order to stimulate their race's desire to continue living? The priests all had this question in their hearts, but they chose to remain silent, suppressing it deep within their hearts, never speaking of it to anyone. This was because they were now the only source of support for the heavenly spirit race's survival. Even the priests felt despair. It was time for their race to be destroyed. Abu turned around and escorted the weak and weary priests. They left through a tunnel dug deep into the snowfield. This place would soon become incomparably cold. With the priests' current condition, they simply wouldn't be able to withstand it. The Grand Elder stood where he was, watching them leave. There was a vacant look in his eyes. He could feel the bitterness, hesitation, and even despair in the hearts of the priests. But the Grand Elder didn't know how to comfort them. This was because similar thoughts had appeared in his heart before, not just once or twice. Could the Heavenly Spirit's clan really persevere? The great tribal elder took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. He didn't know the answer, and he was destined to never have the chance to see the final outcome of the Heavenly Spirit race. But at least he showed up. He could still contribute his last bit of strength to the continuation of the race. Closing his eyes, the Grand Elder sat down cross-legged. He wanted to ensure that he was in his peak condition to complete this hunt. Their cultivation and vitality were the key to the Heavenly Spirit's race's survival. They couldn't afford to lose them. In the tribe, some newborn children could die prematurely due to the invasion of the extreme cold at any time. The temperature dropped even further, and the sound of the wind had already disappeared to the point of almost non-existence. The only thing surging in the air was the extreme cold. Massive icebergs towered over the snowy plains. Because of the battle between Qin Yu and Qian Qian, any bit of strength that leaked out could easily destroy these icebergs and turn them into powder. But now, the most obvious change was that, along with the loud rumbling sounds, the iceberg violently shook. Kacha! Kacha! Cracking sounds rang out incessantly. Cracks appeared one after another, but still stood firm. At this time, the low temperature was enough to freeze them to death. Any cultivator below the Emperor realm, and even a true emperor that had already stepped onto the heaven-piercing Great Tao, could clearly feel the pressure on their Great Tao as they stood on this snowy plains. They were constantly stiffening, as if they would be gradually frozen solid by the cold outside. Qin Yu's complexion turned blue, anger and alarm on his face. His movements were a bit sluggish, as if the strength in his body wasn't circulating smoothly. But of course, all of this was a disguise. His condition was excellent, even better than before. This was because the little blue lamp had already made its move. A warmth pierced through the void, directly descending upon him. It was like he was sitting on a giant furnace. All of the cold strength that invaded his body was instantly dissolved, not affecting him in the least. Quan Mi was expressionless. His skin had already turned extremely pale, without the slightest bit of blood. But this wasn't because he had been injured. Rather, it was because he cultivated the 9-in extreme cold art. When a might of the 9-in extreme cold art was stimulated to the limit, he was able to resist the invasion of the cold outside. Before, it was said that when Quan Mi cultivated the 9-in extreme cold art, his strength would increase by a great deal in the icy environment of the snowy plains. But in all the rules of the world, there was a limit. Once this limit was exceeded, there would be a backlash. The stronger the increase, the more terrifying the backlash would be. Thus, when Quan Mi cultivated the 9-in extreme cold art, he had to ensure his own condition. Once he suffered a backlash from the cold, his fate wouldn't be good. So, why was Luo Guan still able to persist? Although his condition was a bit bad, as if he would be sealed in ice in the next moment, he still didn't fall. Quan Mi couldn't figure this out. But, unless he gave up on chasing Qin Yu and left, he could only continue to endure. As he breathed in and out, an endless chill surged. Like invisible blades, it cut at his mouth, nose, trachea, and even lungs, spreading this chill throughout his entire body. Above his head, the golden-winged rock's cries were no longer sharp. Its golden eyes revealed fear. But with Qin Yu here, it could only grit its teeth and stubbornly persist. In the past, in that different world in the eternal sea, all the giant beasts had accepted Qin Yu's grace and truly obtained the bloodline of the ancient race. This also meant that from that moment on, they had become Qin Yu's lackeys, willing to be ordered around by him. Suddenly, the golden-winged rock stiffened. Its golden eyes widened, revealing an unconcealable fear. This was because just now the terrifying chill that flooded the world had risen several times over. Such a terrifying chill surpassed the limits of what the golden-winged rock could withstand. It was immediately invaded by the cold and froze. Kacha! Kacha! A layer of blue ice appeared on the surface of the golden-winged rock's body at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into an incomparably massive block of ice that fell from the skies and smashed into the snowy plains. There was a heaven-shaking explosion, but it didn't cause too much of a stir. This was because the surface of the snowy plains had been completely sealed in ice. There wasn't even much of a depression, only a shallow mark left behind. With a loud rumble, the distant golden-winged rock maintained its frozen state as it vanished into the ends of the snowy plains. Quan Lu frowned. He froze where he was. A thick layer of ice had sealed him within. His eyes were filled with shock, anger, and shock. His face, which was originally as pale as a sheet of paper, actually started to show traces of blood. But to Quan Lu, this clearly wasn't a good thing. The anger in his eyes deepened, and there was even a hint of panic. The sudden eruption of cold surpassed his expectations. In that short moment, it had risen several times over. Even he couldn't withstand it. And this wasn't the most terrifying thing. because the 9 in extreme cold art had already begun. Backlash. His face became redder and redder, and his body gradually turned icy cold. Quan Lu could clearly feel every inch of his flesh and blood stiffening. Death would soon arrive. He stimulated his cultivation to the limit in an attempt to suppress the backlash within his body. But all of his efforts were in vain. But at this time, what Quan Lu couldn't accept the most was that Luo Guan was still fine. He wasn't sealed in ice. In an instant, Quan Lu reacted. Everything he saw before was only a disguise. Luo Guan must have some hidden card in his hand that could help him not be attacked by the cold in this extremely cold environment. Damn it, he had been tricked. Qin Yu faintly smiled. The pale blue on his face instantly faded away. Quan Lu, I'm really curious. Just what sort of order did you receive for you to kill me? If you are willing, you can tell me the truth, and I might be able to help you survive. Quan Lu's eyes were filled with hate, but there wasn't the slightest bit of wavering in them. Qin Yu shook his head. It seemed there was no way to pry open his mouth. At this time, Qin Yu's complexion changed. He turned to look behind him and saw a figure walking towards him from afar. His entire body was steaming hot, and every pore on his body was wantonly releasing heat. He was like a giant human-shaped torch. Seeing Qin Yu, this person's complexion changed. He cried out, "Impossible!" The great tribe elder's pupils shrank. He couldn't accept what was happening in front of him. The spirit body deep within the snowy plains had already released its complete strength, freezing the entire snowy plains. Everything was sealed in ice, and as long as one was within it, no life form would be able to escape. So, how could this otherworldly invader be completely unharmed? Qin Yu's eyebrows subconsciously furrowed even tighter. A native life form? He looked at the great tribe elder in front of him. From his aura, he could actually feel a hint of intimacy. This caused him to be on high alert. And at this time, the great tribe elder had already regained his composure. He stepped forwards and roared out loud. The extreme cold of the snowy plains crazily gathered towards him. The layer of ice around Qin Yu began to turn deep blue at a speed visible to the naked eye. Endless chilling intent crazily attacked him, like endless waves that wanted to swallow him up. But soon, the great tribe elder's complexion paled. This was because not only was this terrifying, chilling intent unable to suppress Qin Yu, but the deep blue ice beneath his feet began to melt a little at a time. This outsider invader was too strong. No, he was far stronger than he could imagine. Once this person escaped, the heavenly spirit race would surely welcome the most horrifying retaliation. At this time, the phantom of a great sun suddenly appeared behind Qin Yu. It wasn't too clear, but this great sun phantom emitted endless waves of heat that completely melted away the icy cold of the snowy plains. In the great tribe elder's ears, he could hear shrill cries filled with fear and awe. These were the spirit bodies deep within the snowy plains. They were the true rulers of this world. But now the great tribe elder no longer had the mind to consider these things. His eyes widened as he looked at Qin Yu across from him. The great sun phantom shined down, causing his figure to become incomparably tall and towering, as if he could compare with the sun itself. In the past, a ruler had perished and a great calamity had descended upon the heavenly spirit world. As the rulers of this world, the heavenly spirit race had fallen into misery and despair. Generation after generation of clansmen struggled to survive in this dying world. All of this was to wait for the prophecy passed down through the generations of their race to come true one day. When the vanished sun descended upon the world once more, a new ruler would return. He would rescue the heavenly spirit race and complete a rebirth in the fires of despair. From then on, a brighter and more resplendent future would open up. But now, the great clan elder's widened eyes clearly reflected the image of the great sun. Although it was only a shadow, the magnificent aura and the surging heat waves it was emitting showed without a doubt that it possessed great power. Puff! The great tribe elder fell to his knees, his body violently shaking. New ruler, The heavenly spirit race has been waiting for you for many, many years. Today, you have finally arrived." As he finished speaking, tears streamed down his face. Chinyu was expressionless. He stared at the great tribe elder in front of him. He wouldn't easily believe anything just because of a few words. Heavenly spirit race. Chinyu whispered. This name was unfamiliar to him, but as he spoke it, it caused his heart to race. It seemed that there was some connection between this name and him. Chapter 1827. At this time, a fluctuation appeared. Chinyu hesitated for a moment and then took out something. This was a pure black token. There were 2 runes on the front, and a halo of light surged on its surface, releasing a formidable aura. Rumble, rumble. The snowy plains beneath his feet violently shook, as if some giant creature were awakening. With loud, cracking sounds, astonishing cracks appeared, incomparably dark and deep underground. Cries of pain and despair erupted from the depths of the snowy plains. The ice spirits that released an extremely cold aura and sealed all things in ice began to rapidly shatter and disappear. When the command medallions reappeared in this world, they didn't need to do anything to announce their destruction. The air was still bone-chilling cold that could easily kill the vast majority of living beings in this world. But at this time, the great clan elder could clearly feel the temperature rising. This was something that had never happened since the great calamity of the past. This already dead world was constantly becoming colder, colder, and colder. A ruler. This was the new ruler. The great clan elder no longer had any doubts about Qin Yu's identity. Only the appearance of a ruler could bring life back to this dead world. And this also meant that the heavenly spirit race, after suffering for so many years, had finally found hope for a rebirth. This was the 9-realm Holy Lands. Saint Sun token. Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows and recalled the origins of this token. It was something he had obtained in the Titan race. Too much time had passed, and he had nearly forgotten that he still had the status of inheriting the 9-realm Holy Land Saint Sun. He looked at the token in his hand, and then at the heavenly spirit race's great clan elder kneeling on the ground, weeping in agitation. Could this already dead world that could only be entered through the altar in the chaotic sea be one of the 9-realm Holy Land's 9 realms? His thoughts raced. Qin Yu suddenly said, 9-realm Holy Land. The great clan elder's expression didn't change much, but there was a trace of confusion in his excited eyes. Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. Could he have guessed wrong? But the aura of the token and the changes in the snowy plains indicated that there must be a reason. Or perhaps, over the endless years, the current heavenly spirit race had lost some sort of inheritance. Thinking of this, Qin Yu reached out a hand and opened it in front of the great patriarch. Do you recognize this? The Saint Sun token of the 9 realms lay peacefully in his palm. Light circulated on its surface, and the phenomenon became increasingly clear. The great patriarch looked at the token in Qin Yu's hand and kowtowed. Great ruler, please forgive me. For my previous offense, I ask that you place all the blame on me. Do not vent your anger on the heavenly spirit race. My people have been waiting for you in this ice-cold world for far too many years. You are the only hope for our heavenly spirit clan to survive. Dong, dong. The ice trembled, and his forehead cracked open. Fresh blood flowed out, and in the next moment, it froze into a blood crystal. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and shouted, I will ask, and you will answer. If you hide anything, I will immediately leave. The great patriarch revealed a look of fear. He desperately shook his head. Your Excellency, ruler, please ask. I absolutely do not dare to hide anything. Your will is the guidance of the heavenly spirit race. Qin Yu raised the token. You recognize it? The Grand Elder nodded. This is the mark of the Sovereign Lord. In the records of the heavenly spirits, only the Supreme Sovereign Lord is qualified to hold such an item. It represents supreme authority. Qin Yu put away the token. He shouted out in his heart, Little blue lamp, I can help you search this person's memories, but the prerequisite is that he cannot resist. Otherwise, he will undoubtedly die. Humph. You know, that's not what I wanted to ask. But, since you can check my memories, let's begin. Qin Yu's eyes fell on the great patriarch. Now, I will investigate your memories. Release all resistance. Yes, the great clan elder said respectfully, without the slightest bit of resistance. Qin Yu lifted a hand and placed it on his head. The little blue lamp's strength quietly spread out, invading his body. Soon, Qin Yu saw through this person's life. He didn't miss a single thing. He was able to determine his identity, as well as the current situation of the heavenly spirit race. A moment later, Qin Yu drew back his hand, a thoughtful look on his face. From what he saw, this great patriarch of the heavenly spirit race wasn't lying. Of course, he wouldn't easily believe him just because of this. Although it was difficult to tamper with memories, it wasn't impossible for a true almighty being to do so. It was best to be cautious in all matters. The great patriarch knelt on the ground and respectfully bowed. Sovereign Lord, the heavenly spirit race is willing to crawl at your feet and become your most loyal dog and servant. I only hope that you can help us as soon as possible and rescue my people. This is because every day they are constantly dying in torment. Less than 10% of my race's newborns can survive. Qin Yu turned around and glanced at the frozen prison. As the ice-snow fairy body died, the extreme cold began to fade away, and he was barely able to suppress the backlash of strength in his body. If he waited a little longer, he would be able to slowly accumulate enough strength to break through the ice and leave. Now, as he met Qin Yu's gaze, Prison's heart trembled, and he revealed a look of fear and alarm. Shua! Qin Yu's figure appeared in front of the extreme ice. He lifted a hand and took out the mountain and river sword. Beneath the illumination of the great sun, a gap appeared in the ice. The mountain and river sword howled through the air, piercing through Prison's chest, piercing through his heart, and emerging from his back. The moment this sword broke through his heart, it also pierced through his great Tao, cutting off all of Prison's life force. Bang! The ice shattered. Qin Yu reached out a hand and grabbed onto Prison. Wait here! He took a step forwards and vanished from sight. The great patriarch was excited and restless. His face flushed red, and he paced back and forth in circles. There were several times he wanted to send a message back to the clan, but he forcefully endured it. The heavenly spirit race was already on the verge of collapse and couldn't withstand any more blows. Although he was already convinced that Qin Yu was the new ruler, although he already believed that Qin Yu was the new sovereign lord, before they smoothly arrived at the camp, the great patriarch didn't dare to act recklessly. Time slowly passed. Just as the great patriarch couldn't help but reveal a look of restlessness, space twisted and Qin Yu walked out. He didn't know if it was an illusion or not, but although Qin Yu didn't seem any different on the surface, the great patriarch could sense that his aura was even more unfathomable. Qin Yu had a calm expression. Let's go. Let's return to your clan. There are some things I need to confirm. Yes. The great patriarch was excited. The great patriarch led the way. In order to avoid any accidents, Qin Yu would rather spend a bit more time and silently follow behind. During this process, he used his divine sense to sense his surroundings. If anything went wrong, he would be able to respond immediately. Half a day later, they followed the snowy plains southward. In a massive depression that could shelter them from the cold winds, Qin Yu finally saw the place where the heavenly spirit race lived. These were tents buried in ice and snow. Their surfaces had been completely frozen, and only the top of the tents had ventilation holes. As smoke rose up, the surrounding area showed signs of melting. Every member of the heavenly spirit race lived in such tents from the moment they were born. It was fine if they succeeded in their cultivation, otherwise they wouldn't be able to take a single step out of their tents until the day they died. The extreme cold outside could easily snatch away their lives. Qin Yu suddenly frowned. It wasn't because he sensed something was wrong, but because the great patriarch in front of him suddenly fell to the ground. His skin instantly lost all luster, revealing an unhealthy gray color. Great patriarch! A furious roar exploded in Qin Yu's ears. Like a thunderclap, Abu broke apart the layers of snow and ice beneath his feet. His figure was like a ferocious tiger descending a mountain as he hurtled towards Qin Yu. His fist punched out, causing the air to howl. "Stop!" The Grand Elder, who had fallen to the ground, suddenly widened his eyes. "Who?" His fist stopped less than a foot away from Qin Yu. The strong winds it stirred up caused his robes to flutter about. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. He looked at Abu, who was wrapped in thick beast skins. Because he had gone berserk just now, his flesh and blood were stretched taut and bulging, causing the beast skins to burst apart and cracks to appear all over his body. At this time, he was gasping for breath. His red eyes stubbornly stared at Qin Yu. He really was like a ferocious tiger that was about to devour someone. The great patriarch struggled to his feet, his complexion anxious. "Your Excellency, Abu has misunderstood. He didn't mean to offend you. I ask that you show mercy and not lower yourself to the same level as this fool." His current condition was extremely poor. He was like an oil lamp that was about to run out of oil. As he spoke these words, he began to gasp for breath. "Great Patriarch!" Abu half knelt on the ground, holding the Great Patriarch in his arms. As he looked at his current appearance, tears began to fall down his cheeks. This Iron Man was crying like a child. Qin Yu frowned. "You're going to die." The Great Patriarch relaxed. "Your Excellency, you are right. I already knew this. To be able to see Your Excellency before I die, I am satisfied." He grabbed onto Abu. "Remember, the one in front of you is the new ruler that my Heavenly Spirit clan has been waiting for generations. He will lead my Heavenly Spirit clan out of the abyss of destruction." Abu's eyes widened. He hadn't clearly heard what the Great Patriarch had called Qin Yu. At this time, his face was filled with disbelief. As he finished speaking, as if he had completed the last thing on his mind, the Great Patriarch revealed a smile and slowly closed his eyes. "Great Patriarch! Great Patriarch!" Abu cried out in panic. He looked at Qin Yu and then fell to his knees, kowtowing again and again. Bang! Bang! The sound shook the earth. "You are the ruler that the Great Patriarch speaks of, so you must have a way to save him. Abu, I beg you to save the Great Patriarch. I beg you." Qin Yu frowned. The Great Patriarch's current situation was that of a lamp that had run out of oil after suffering to the extreme. This was extremely difficult. "It's not that there is no way," the little blue lamp suddenly said. Qin Yu asked, "Why did you help?" The little blue lamp said, "I will give you the answer to all the questions in your heart. But for now, you should save him first. You could take advantage of this chance to have the entire Heavenly Spirit clan thoroughly believe in your status as the new ruler." Qin Yu took a deep breath. "Okay." He stepped forwards and grasped his hand. The unconscious Great Patriarch, who would die at any moment, flew up and fell into his hand. The phantom of a great sun appeared behind Qin Yu. Dazzling light gushed out, illuminating the entire mountain hollow. All of the beast skin tents covered in snow and ice were covered in this light, releasing a long-lost warmth. Tents opened one after another. The Heavenly Spirit clan clansmen walked out, their eyes wide as they stared at the scene in front of them. Standing in front of the great sun phantom, Qin Yu was like a towering mountain that supported the heavens. In their eyes, he was like a god descending to the mortal world. Chapter 1828. To the Heavenly Spirit Race. This was a miracle. Countless clansmen walked out of their tents for the first time. Their eyes were blazing hot. They never thought that in their lives they would be able to leave their tents. The entire world fell deathly silent. The unconscious Great Patriarch slowly opened his eyes. After a brief daze, his pupils regained their focus. I didn't die." His face was shaken. The Great Elder naturally knew what his current situation was. When he had forcefully erupted, he had exhausted the last of his vitality. He was like a lamp without oil. He was doomed to die. "Great Patriarch." Abu was overjoyed. "You've woken up." Thud, 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 thud. Your Excellency Sovereign, Abu thanks you for saving the great clan elder. From this day forth, Abu's life is yours. As long as you say the word, Abu is willing to jump into a sea of flames. Your Excellency, Your Excellency, the great patriarch stood up and knelt on the ground. You shouldn't have sacrificed yourself to save me. I have lived for a long time. To be able to see your arrival, I am willing to die. But my heavenly spirit race still has many infants. They need your grace to help them cross this endless winter. Chinyu swept his eyes over everyone. He slowly said, Since I have returned, the heavenly spirit race's tribulations shall also come to an end. He lifted a hand, and the great sun phantom behind him rose up, releasing even more light that illuminated the world. In the valley, the thick snow and ice began to rapidly melt, revealing the moist ground. Seeds began to sprout and sprout, producing a touch of green that gently swayed in the wind. All the heavenly spirit race clansmen froze in place. Green, an old heavenly spirit race clansman, excitedly threw himself to the ground. Ignoring the mud, he knelt beside a blade of green grass. His eyes lit up. The aura of life, this is the aura of life. I never thought I would be able to see a green plant that only existed in the records. It's a new life, it's a new life. Another clansman was ecstatic. Your Excellency ruler has arrived. Our heavenly spirit race will be like them, able to overcome this calamity and obtain a new life. The great patriarch took a deep breath and raised his hands. All heavenly spirit race clansmen, today, the ancient prophecy has come true. Your Excellency ruler, who will save the world, has arrived. He is our only hope. Now, let us kneel together to the supreme ruler and ask for his light to drive away the cold of the world. Kulala, everyone in the cave, was kneeling in the mud. Although they looked battered and exhausted, their faces were filled with excitement, ecstasy, and longing. At the same time, Chinyu felt a rich and blazing joss flame power suddenly surge out and gather towards him, pure and pious, without the least bit of impurities. Chinyu could clearly feel that as the strength of the heavenly spirit race's joss flames fused into him, his great Tao became even stronger. He was another step closer to igniting his joss flames. Indeed, the most pious faith was the most powerful force. Those who believe in me will be freed from suffering. Chinyu said in a low voice, his voice echoing through the valley. But now, there are other powerful invaders that have entered this world. I must handle everything properly before I can truly lead you to a new life. That day is not far away. Members of the Heavenly Spirits clan, I need all of your faith to help me become stronger. The Grand Elder said loudly. Not long ago, His Excellency He Jimin personally took action and killed an incomparably powerful invader. This old man saw it with his own eyes. What we need to do is to believe in our master and patiently wait until we reach the end of this cold winter. He knelt on the ground and kissed the mud. He respectfully said, His Excellency He Jimin, after the great calamity of the past, ice descended upon the world, and the Heavenly Spirit clan faced a calamity of destruction. Although we are the only tribe left in the entire Northern Territory, there are other Heavenly Spirit clans in this world that have managed to last until today. We will immediately send the strongest warriors of our clan to pass on news of your arrival to them. Abu slapped his chest and took off the leather hat on his head. I, Abu, am willing to act as His Excellency He Jimin's messenger and pass on your will. I do not hesitate to walk through this world. Even if I die in the cold, that will be my greatest honor. He kowtowed. I beg His Excellency He Jimin to give me this chance. Chinyu lifted a hand and light gathered at his fingertip, turning into a shining seed. He flicked it in front of Abu and fused it between his eyebrows. This seed can protect you from the invasion of the cold. If you encounter a powerful invader from the outside world, you can use it to summon me when you are in danger. I will give you my protection. Thank you. Abu stood up. Great Elder, I will immediately leave and search for other tribes. He turned and left. Outside the cave, it was still a world of ice and snow. The wind and snow soon swallowed up his figure. Chinyu thought for a moment. Then, he stepped forwards, and the great sun phantom above his head erupted with light. Everyone closed their eyes. When they opened them once more, the entire cave was covered by a giant enchantment. It will take some time to unseal the entire world. But as long as you are within this enchantment, I can guarantee that you will be able to reproduce. After a brief pause, Chinyu continued to say, starting from now, newborn babies of the Heavenly Spirit clan will no longer have to withstand the invasion of the cold. They will be able to smoothly live on and grow into adults. There was the sound of crying. The women of the Heavenly Spirit clan were crying out loud. They all had children and loved ones that had died in the cold. The children that had just been born could only watch helplessly as their white and tender faces slowly turned blue and purple. No matter how hard they tried, there was no way they could help them or leave behind even the tiniest bit of warmth. Like this, they could only watch helplessly as they died in thick swaddling clothes, turning into icy cold corpses. They were so small that they didn't weigh anything in their arms. But they were so heavy that they pressed against their chests, leaving them unable to breathe day and night. Countless times they woke up from their dreams. They could still see their small eyes, their small mouths, as well as their small hands that were stretched out outside their swaddling clothes and then frozen. The men's eyes were red. They forced themselves not to make a sound, but tears were already welling up in their eyes, constantly swirling in them. They felt pain for their dead children, and also for their wives who had lost their children. But this was their fate. From the moment they were born, they had to face the invasion of the extreme cold. If they couldn't withstand it, they could only die. Before this, they never dared to say this. This was because life had to continue. If their tribe wanted to continue living, the men had to run around desperately, doing everything in their power to find resources for their tribe to survive. But now, they could feel the power of the enchantment isolating them from the extreme cold. For the first time, they didn't need to pretend to be strong. The great tribe elder took a deep breath. He bowed and said, "Sir, I have let you witness a joke. I have been disrespectful." He looked at the enchantment that covered the valley. His lips moved several times, but no sound came out. Finally, tears fell down. This was because he also had 3 sons and 2 daughters. Before they could live to a full month, their lives had already been taken away by the extreme cold. In such a difficult environment, adults had to face the threat of death from the extreme cold at any time. Why would they continue living? The reason was simple. They had no other choice. The chances of newborn surviving were less than 10%. If they wanted the Heavenly Spirit clan to continue on and not perish in the extreme cold, they could only give birth to more children. As Chinyu looked at this scene, he felt a rare touch in his heart. This was because he saw the truest emotions of humanity. This sort of emotion that came from the heart possessed the power to infect the heart. To the Heavenly Spirit clan, Chinyu was the savior that they had waited for countless years for. He was the ruler that would save them and open up a new life for them. But in reality, who knew what situation he was in right now? If Chinyu encountered an accident and perished in the struggle for the great Tao, then what sort of ending would the Heavenly Spirit clan, whose faces were streaked with tears and sorrow, welcome? They will be in an even worse state. The little blue lamp's voice sounded out in his mind. Chinyu, you have given them hope, so you must do your best so that they will no longer be disappointed. Otherwise, these ups and downs will completely destroy their hearts. The Heavenly Spirit clan will wail in despair before they are completely exterminated. Chinyu took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. I know, his expression was calm and his eyes were firm, but he could clearly feel that the weight on his shoulders had become even heavier. He had to live on, but it wasn't just for his own survival. Because right now, Chinyu's life and death also involved the life and death of countless people. And it wasn't just the Heavenly Spirit clan in front of him. Great clan elder, Your Excellency, please speak. I still have other matters to attend to, so I cannot stay here for long. For the next period of time, You must restrain your clansmen from leaving at will. Stay within the enchantment and wait for my orders. Yes. Chinyu glanced at the weeping heavenly spirit clan one last time and then turned to leave. Schwa. Space twisted. When he appeared once more, 10,000 miles had been sealed in ice, and the air was filled with an endless chill. Little blue lamp. Chinyu shouted out loud. Hum. Space twisted, and the phantom of a great sun appeared. The faint outline of the little blue lamp could be seen within. What do you want to know? Ask away. Chinyu said, Is there anything you can tell me about the Heavenly Spirit Clan? The little blue lamp said, When I took the initiative to attack you, I already guessed your problem. In truth, the reason is very simple. The Heavenly Spirit Clan can help you become stronger. Chinyu frowned, not speaking. After a period of silence, the little blue lamp said, Of course, there's another reason. But I haven't thought about this matter yet, so I don't know if I should tell you or not. Don't worry. Although I can't completely confirm this matter, I can tell you the secret of the White Jade Capital right now. Chinyu sneered. Speak. The little blue lamp said, You should know that between the heavens and earth, there are a total of 9 blazing suns that illuminate the infinite worlds. It was over, just like that. Chinyu's frown deepened. But at this time, his complexion changed and his pupils violently shrank. The White Jade Capital also had 9. Although Chinyu had already thought of this before, for the little blue lamp to say it and with such a tone, it was undoubtedly a confirmation. The ambitions of the human cultivation system were actually this great. The 9 White Jade Capitals correspond to the 9 blazing suns. If I didn't personally enter, I would also find this hard to believe. But this is the truth, the little blue lamp slowly said. It seemed a bit hesitant, not knowing how to speak. Chinyu said, Is there need to hide anything between you and me? Or perhaps, with the situation having reached this step, even though everything seems stable and within our grasp, danger can arrive at any moment and throw us into the abyss of destruction. The little blue lamp said, You are right. At the edge of the great sun phantom, there was a slight tremor. An invisible strength spread out, forming a small enchantment that covered only the little blue lamp and Chinyu. After several more breaths of silence, the little blue lamp slowly said, Chinyu, have you ever thought that it isn't just the White Jade Capital that has 9 suns? The Saint Sun token in your hand also corresponds to 9 different worlds. Bang! These words were like a boulder falling into the sea, setting off raging waves in Chinyu's heart. His first thought was that this was impossible, but he soon thought of the first question he asked just now. The Heavenly Spirit Race. Why would the little blue lamp act out of character and actively help them on its own initiative? This in itself was enough to explain some things. Within the enchantment, there was a long silence. After a long time, Chinyu slowly said, How confident are you? The little blue lamp said, I don't have confidence, so I hesitated about whether or not to tell you. But perhaps we can find a way to confirm this matter. Speak. If the 9-realm Holy Land is the same as the 9 White Jade Capitals, and they both correspond to 9 blazing suns, then there must be some connection between them. As long as we can find this connection, we might be able to unravel the truth of the matter. Chinyu thought for a moment. That's right. He lifted a hand. Light flashed in his palm, and the Saint Sun token appeared. The runes on its surface and the words 9 realm were still surging with light. If we want to find the connection between this world and the other worlds, this should be the key. A hand reached out from the great sun phantom and took away the token. After several breaths of time, the token was returned. I have no way of sensing anything through it. It seems that you will have to do this yourself. Chinyu nodded. All right. The great sun phantom vanished, and with it, the enchantment around him also faded away. Chinyu let out a deep breath. He rubbed his face. Things had developed in a completely unexpected way. His status as the successor to the 9-realm Holy Land's Holy Land seemed to involve something extraordinary. If the 9-realm Holy Land's creation really had the same goal as the 9 white jade capitals. Then this matter was truly grave. Shua. With a step forward, Qin Yu vanished from sight. He grasped the Saint's Sun token in his hand and focused his mind. No change, no change, no change. In the endless cold, Qin Yu's figure flickered and vanished. He began a long, endless journey of searching. And the most important and comical thing was that even now, Qin Yu still didn't know what he was looking for. Shua. As he passed through space again, Qin Yu's complexion changed. He looked down at the Saint's Sun token in his hand. On the surface, it didn't seem any different from before. But the halo of light surging on the token seemed to be a bit stronger. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a long time. Qin Yu revealed a happy expression. There really was a problem. Shua. He took another step forward, but this time he passed through a much shorter distance. After several more steps, he finally determined his position. Shua. He took another step. Qin Yu's eyes brightened, and the light on the token shined even brighter. But soon, he frowned. Someone was here. Chapter 1829. In front of them were 4 ring-shaped mountains. The mountains were connected to each other, forming a concave region. The terrain inside was relatively low and could block out the surrounding cold winds. At this time, looking down, one could see that within the snow and ice, there were tents that had fallen into a frozen state. They were also made of thick beast hides, layered on top of each other. But these tents hadn't been open for a long time. 5 figures stood in this quiet area of tents. They cautiously swept their eyes around. When they didn't sense anything wrong, they relaxed a little. Then, they looked at each other, a bit of dread in their eyes. Amidst the howling wind and snow, everyone was silent. But at the same time, everyone knew that this silence was only temporary. Conflict could erupt at any moment. This was because this place had already been swallowed up by the cold, and all life had been cut off. This was where the source of the world was hidden, and it was also the goal they had all come to this world for. Noga backed down. After all, each of them had the shadow of a Tao master behind them. The reason they were chosen to enter this world was because of the Tao master's trust in them. It was also a test that they couldn't afford to be careless in the slightest. If they succeeded, their future glory would be limitless. If they failed, they might fall to the dust and lose everything they had. The 5 people were divided into 3 camps. There were 2 people under the first Tao master, 2 people under the 4th Tao master, and the last one was Chung Haoren. In the past, after he parted ways with Qin Yu, he had explored the world by himself for a long time. Through a lucky chance, he had coincidentally found some clues, and it was only then that he discovered this region that had already been reduced to a desolate region of ice and snow. The good news was that the world's source existed deep in the ice beneath his feet. But the bad news was that he wasn't the only one who discovered this place. And what was even worse was that he was alone. The 5 people were divided into 3 groups. No matter how one looked at it, first eliminating the weakest one and then starting the competition was the safest choice. This caused Chung Haoren's expression to be heavy. He looked around, his eyes filled with vigilance. In the silence, the cultivators under the 1st Tao Master and 4th Tao Master looked over to Chung Haoren. Although they hadn't attacked yet, it was clear that the 2 sides had reached some sort of tacit understanding. Suddenly, the icy gazes of the 4 people who were about to attack changed. They turned and looked in another direction. In the wind and snow, a figure appeared, walking over. Luo Guan. Chung Haoren shouted out loud. He was overjoyed, and the fear in his heart was swept away. He was confident in Qin Yu's strength. If the 2 of them joined forces, they wouldn't fear either side. Qin Yu's eyes swept over the tent that was swallowed up by ice and snow. In his mind, the image of the Heavenly Spirit clan members crying and rejoicing not too long ago appeared. His heart felt heavy, but he didn't reveal any of this on his face. He slowly said, "It looks like everyone discovered this place together. Then we can only fight and see whose fist is bigger and whose sword light is sharper. Bang! He took a step forward and raised his hand. The mountain river sword appeared and slashed down without any hesitation. Bang! The monstrous sword aura was like a river bursting through a dam, and it surged out in a vast and mighty manner towards the two cultivators beneath the fourth downlord. These two people clearly didn't think that Qin Yu would suddenly attack. Their faces were filled with anger as they hurriedly defended themselves. Within Qin Yu's soul space, the cosmic sea cross bell suddenly shook. The clear ringing of the bell entered their ears. To these two cultivators, it was like a cold and hard icicle was stabbing into their minds, causing them to stiffen. At the same time, the nine-realm holy land token in Qin Yu's chest began to glow and shake. Bang! It was like an invisible mountain was crashing down, pressing down on the two cultivators. Their souls were attacked by the cosmic sea cross bell, and their mortal bodies were suppressed by a terrifying strength. The result was that the two powerful cultivators chosen by the fourth downlord to enter this world weren't even able to respond to Qin Yu's sword strike before they were sent flying away, blood gushing out from their noses and mouths. The two of them crashed into the ground, tearing apart the ice and snow, forming long cracks in the ground. Run! The two people that were sent flying away didn't hesitate at all. They stood up and fled, their faces pale and distressed. Anger surged in their eyes. Before entering this world, they had already looked through the information on Qin Yu and judged that this powerhouse from a different world from the seaside realm was indeed shockingly strong. But in today's battle, this youth had used a single sword strike to severely wound them. The methods he used could be called terrifying to the extreme. Chung Haoran's eyes widened and his pupils shrank. He knew that Qin Yu was strong, someone who had nearly lit a true Joss Flame Great Tao and was a powerhouse second only to his honorable master. But this sword strike in front of him was unimaginable, far surpassing his expectations. Qin Yu put away his sword. He didn't take advantage of this victory to chase after them. His eyes fell onto the two disciples of the first downlord. He slowly said, "Before this, you helped us delay for some time. I will give you a chance. If you leave now, I won't use my sword." If they hadn't seen Qin Yu use his sword with their own eyes, the two disciples of the first downlord would have been shouting in their hearts, "How arrogant!" But now, their complexions changed again and again. Apart from anger, there was also a bit of fear and unwillingness. Qin Yu had no expression. This world is extremely large, and the source of the world isn't the only one. You and I are looking at this place. Leave. This is our last chance. Good. The first Daylord's first disciple shouted out loud. He glared at Qin Yu. "Let's go." Shua. The two disciples turned and left. Qin Yu flipped his hand, and the mountain and river sword vanished. He glanced at the stunned Chung Haoran. "They've all left. Let's move." He stepped towards the tent area that had been completely swallowed up by ice and snow. All he heard was silence, without the slightest sound. Okay." Chung Haoran regained his composure and quickly walked over. He looked at Qin Yu's back and hesitated. In the end, he couldn't help but say, "Luo Guan, your sword just now, don't ask." "It's useless to ask." Qin Yu didn't even turn his head. Chung Haoran choked for a moment. But thinking about it, this was normal. After all, Luo Guan and White Jade Capital only had a cooperative relationship. There was a great lack of trust between the two sides, so it was impossible for Luo Guan to reveal his hidden cards. He took a deep breath and continued to say, "What about Tuara? That boy is a true madman. It won't be easy to get rid of him." As Chung Haoran spoke, Qin Yu stopped in front of a tent and flicked his finger. An invisible sword aura was released, instantly piercing through the ice and tearing apart the tent, revealing the scene inside. The icy cold invaded, freezing everything. But the corpses in front of him didn't have much pain on their faces. It was as if they had been sleeping when the icy cold invaded them, causing them to die in their sleep. Qin Yu's eyes slowly swept around, pausing on a woman. This was a mother who had just given birth. Her face revealed a mixture of joy and worry. She stretched out a hand and held the infant in her arms, using her own chest to give him warmth. Although Qin, you already knew about these matters when he was at the Heavenly Spirit Tribe. Hearing about it and seeing it with his own eyes were ultimately different. Qin, you looked at the small person in the woman's arms. He hadn't even been able to open his eyes to clearly see the world before he had lost his life that had just begun. He had never seen this person before. In fact, not too long ago, Qin, you didn't even know anything about the Heavenly Spirit Tribe. But now his heart was still surging with a sour feeling that constantly tumbled about. Chung Howard frowned. He looked at Qin Yu. MM? Qin Yu took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. He turned and continued walking forward, his face expressionless. He died. I know he died. In such an extreme cold environment, Chung Howard's eyes widened in shock. What did you say? Qin Yu said he died. I killed him. He stopped and looked down at the ice and snow on the ground, ignoring Chung Howard, who had clearly lost his voice because of the shock. In his sleeves, the 9 Realms token trembled. This let Qin Yu know that this was the place he was looking for. He stepped forwards, and the ice and snow instantly collapsed, forming a bottomless crack in the ground. Then, he leapt into it. Wait for me. Chung Howard hurriedly followed behind. Wind howled in his ears as he rapidly sank down. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. Before he touched the ground, his figure slowed down. Then, like a feather, he gently floated to the ground. Ha! Chung Howard landed behind him. His expression was wonderful. His eyes were wide open, filled with shock and disbelief. Without giving him a chance to speak, Qin Yu said, You and I will split up and search this crack. You start from this side. He lifted a hand and rushed to the other side. Chung Howard hesitated for a moment and then chose to listen to the arrangements. Soon, he cried out loud, a look of joy on his face. This was because in the space in front of him, there were dots of light the size of beans that constantly flickered. Heaven and earth source energy. That's right, these seemingly unremarkable dots of light were what appeared after the world died. After its source energy shattered and dispersed, it gathered together once more. Luo Guan. He turned his head and shouted out. But there was no response. Chung Howard took a deep breath and took out a jade bottle. After pouring his strength into it, the runes on the jade bottle slowly lit up. Then it released a weak, swallowing strength that slowly pulled up the dots of light and suspended them in the air. The dots of light in the air began to fly into the jade bottle one at a time. Now, Chung Howard no longer cared about Luo Guan. The world source energy was right in front of him. This was the mission his honorable master had given him. And at this time, on the other side of the crack, Qin Yu lifted the 9 Realms token. Space shook in front of him, and a door slowly appeared. He carefully looked at it several times. After sensing nothing wrong, he opened the door and stepped in. Everything in front of him turned dark. Then, in the next moment, everything turned crimson red. In front of him was a world of flowing lava. The air was filled with the thick smell of sulfur, and there was also a terrifyingly high temperature that could instantly burn a person to ashes. The great sun phantom appeared. The little blue lamp calmly observed its surroundings, as if it were sensing something. After a long time, it slowly said, Qin Yu, it looks like the prophecy will come true. Qin Yu closed his eyes and then opened them. What do I do? The human cultivation system had 9 terrifying powerhouses on the level of Tao Masters, and they ruled over endless territories. This was why they dared to construct 9 white jade capitals that corresponded to the 9 blazing suns of the world, all in order to achieve some great ambition. But Qin Yu, if you wanted to walk down the same path, that would be suicidal. You have 2 choices. The little blue lamp's voice was calm. First, give up on the 9-realm Holy Land. As long as you don't accept it, everything here will have nothing to do with you. Qin Yu was silent for a moment. What is the second choice? Take a gamble. The little blue lamp said, Right now, you're like a gambler who has already sat down at the gambling table. There is no chance for you to leave. Either you win or you die. If you lose, no matter how serious the consequences are, death is enough to erase everything. If you think like this, don't you feel much more relaxed? Because even your life is on the line, There is nothing else you don't dare to do. Qin Yu looked up at the world in front of him. The skies were dyed crimson, and the air was filled with a terrifyingly high temperature. Compared to the world of the heavenly spirit race, the two were in two completely different extreme environments. But without exception, this meant that the world itself had already died. Even if the appearance of the nine-realm tokens caused these two worlds to gradually revive from the depths of death and show signs of new life. But this required time. If a dead world wanted to completely revive or even restore itself to its original appearance, it would take many, many years. But now, Qin Yu didn't have time, let alone many, many years. He wasn't even sure if he could wait another year. He rubbed his temples and forced a smile. Even if I want to gamble, I fear I won't have the chance. This was the truth. But the little blue lamp gave a different answer. No, when I said to gamble, I naturally have the leeway to gamble. I don't want to hold on to this thought and die in the end. Hypothetically speaking, if you can seize the 9 white jade capitals and use them to suppress the 9 realms, or to be more precise, fuse the 9 white jade capitals into the 9 worlds, perhaps you can revive them in a short period of time. Qin Yu frowned. Are you sure you know what you were saying? Seize the 9 white jade capitals? What a joke. The 7th Tao Master possessed unfathomable strength and was more than enough to suppress Qin Yu. Moreover, behind the 9 white jade capitals were 9 Tao Masters with transcendent cultivations. If they joined forces, they could fight with a blazing sun. With such a terrifying strength, how could he compete with them? To put it bluntly, he didn't even have the qualifications to sit at the same table as them. The little blue lamp said, in a true comparison of strength, you certainly don't have a chance. In fact, you could even say that you are seeking your own death, but I won't let you truly die, so there's a chance. He lifted a hand and pointed at the world in front of him. Qin Yu, do you think that a gradually reviving world with a complete source of the world can tempt a Tao Master to the point that they're willing to pay a price for it? Qin Yu said in a low voice, what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that you can draw a very large and fragrant biscuit for the 9 Tao Lords and place it in front of them. It would seem that they would be able to eat it as long as they stretched out their hand and grabbed it. The little blue lamp's voice was calm. As long as they reach out their hand, that means you already have a chance to succeed. As for what the final result will be and whether or not it will go smoothly, I cannot guarantee that. This is the gamble I'm talking about. If you succeed, you might be able to ignite your great Tao and obtain an even greater strength. If you fail, all that is left is death. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. Only death? What a good only death. He sucked in a deep breath. Then tell me clearly, how can I draw such a tempting biscuit? Chapter 1830. Although the whole thing was difficult to do, it was easy to sum it up and explain it clearly. With the 7th Tao Master as an example, he had invited Qin Yu to help him enter the world of the heavenly spirit race. His initial goal was that Qin Yu could help him seize more of the world's source energy. Because their cultivation system was different, the path that humans walked was to refine the world's rules into their own bodies and strengthen themselves. To them, the world's source energy was the best cultivation treasure. Into powerhouses at the Tao Master level, it could help them complete their final transformation and transform into the ultimate weapon of the world. In the human cultivation system, this was called achieving the Tao or Tao unification. It was the ultimate peak boundary, the highest level of cultivation. But for powerhouses at the Tao Master level to take that final step of transformation, it wouldn't be so simple. The amount of world's source energy needed was an astonishing amount. The world's remaining source energy of a dead world, even if a large portion of it was collected, still might not be enough. And this was Qin Yu's chance. According to the little blue lamp, he wanted to turn the 9 realms into 9 bait, so that the 9 white jade capitals Tao Masters could eat it at the same time. In a world of flowing magma, Qin Yu thought for a moment and then slowly said, Your meaning is that I have to make the 9 Tao masters believe that I can help them revive the 9 worlds and then give them the complete source of the world for them to swallow. But I fear that this is impossible. This involves their own cultivation of the great Tao and also involves the 9 white jade capitals. The 9 Tao masters will definitely be extremely cautious. You're right, but what if we can make them believe that the revived world's source energy is theirs? The little blue lamp's voice was calm. The moment it fell, some information appeared in Qin Yu's mind. Condense the world heart. The so-called world heart was a core object refined from the world's source energy. It was one with the world itself. As long as one grasped the world heart, that was the same as grasping the life gate of a world. They could easily destroy it. If the world heart was placed in the hands of the 9 Tao masters, it wouldn't be difficult to win their trust. But doing this was the same as handing over the 9 worlds to them. To Qin Yu, this wasn't any advantage at all. Qin Yu frowned, a questioning look on his face. The little blue lamp said, "Don't worry." Without further explanation, Qin Yu nodded and no longer asked. With the relationship between him and the little blue lamp, the two of them were bound together for good or ill. It was impossible to separate them. Since that's the case, let's give it a try. Qin Yu let out a deep breath. His eyes swept over the world of magma. But for now, let's confirm it first to avoid any accidents. The little blue lamp said, "That's right." The shadow of the great sun collapsed and disappeared. Qin Yu lifted his hand and took out the 9 realms token. Through the distribution of the 2 heavenly spirit clans he had found before, he had already figured out some patterns. For example, although the 2 tribes had natural shelter from the wind and cold, the true crux of the matter was the heaven and earth essence buried deep beneath the ice and snow. The world essence left behind by a dead world was the last bit of its power. It could maintain the reproduction of life within a small area. Otherwise, all living beings would die along with the world and fall into destruction. In other words, finding the origin of heaven and earth would mean finding the native life forms of this world. Shua, Qin Yu stepped out. His figure vanished from the Crimson World. With the help of the 9 realms token, after spending half a day, Qin Yu finally found the native life forms that lived in this world of magma. Unlike the heavenly spirit clans who bitterly resisted the extreme cold, the native life forms here had to resist the fatal heat of the outside world. They had to struggle to survive in a slightly cooler mountain stream. After considering it again and again, because of time constraints, and also in order to avoid any accidents, Qin Yu didn't directly contact them. Quietly, he captured one of the native life forms and sealed it away. Then, with the help of the little blue lamp, he probed its memories. For the sake of caution, after Qin Yu let it go, he confirmed several times that this place was indeed one of the 9 realms. The little blue lamp said, "Qin Yu, you are quite cautious." Qin Yu said, "If this matter goes smoothly, I might be able to turn things around and ignite the incense flame Great Tao. I can fight the Qin Emperor to the death." He paused for a moment and then continued, "I must be careful. I cannot allow any accidents to occur because of the slightest bit of carelessness. That's for the best. But there isn't much time. We still have other places to go. Let's go now." Qin Yu turned and walked away. His figure vanished from sight. Soon, he appeared deep in a pitch-black underground. The channel was here. Before this, when he was searching for the natives of the magma world, Qin Yu had discovered this place first. Using the same method, he opened up the channel and stepped inside. Luo Guan had vanished. Cheng Haoren had already collected all of the drifting heaven and earth source energy here. But when he returned, he couldn't find any trace of Luo Guan. But before this, he hadn't felt any fluctuations of strength. In other words, Luo Guan hadn't fought with anyone. Had he left on his own initiative? But why hadn't he told him before this? After searching the surroundings once more, Cheng Haoren could only leave, his heart filled with confusion and confusion. Time passed a day at a time. Soon, the 1-month deadline approached. But during this period of time, Cheng Haoren still hadn't found any trace of Qin Yu. It was like he had completely vanished from this world. The day of return approached. His attempts to contact Qin Yu were fruitless, so Chung Haoran could only leave first. He would join up with the other cultivators of White Jade Capital and leave this world of ice and snow together. Chung Haoran, where is Luo Guan? The first Dao Master's disciple asked, his voice attracting the attention of everyone. Chung Haoran shook his head. I don't know, humph. This world involves the cultivation of every Dao Master, so there cannot be any accidents. The disciple had a gloomy expression. Luo Guan has disappeared. There must be an explanation for this. You and the seventh Dao Master must both take responsibility. Just as his voice fell, space twisted in front of him. Qin Yu stepped out and lightly said, I don't need anyone to take responsibility for me. Do you have a problem with that? His indifferent eyes swept over them, filled with a biting chill. Luo Guan. The complexions of the first Dao Master's two disciples changed. On the other side, the two cultivators from the fourth Dao Master's White Jade Capital had pale faces. Now they revealed a bit of fear and resentment. Before this, they had suffered a great loss at Qin Yu's hands, causing them to obtain nearly nothing in the struggle for world source energy. After they returned, they would also suffer the punishment of the fourth Dao Master. Chung Haoran revealed a happy expression. He quickly walked over. Where did you go? Forget it. Let's not talk about this for now. We need to go back now. Qin Yu nodded. Okay. Chung Haoran swept his eyes over Qin Yu's fist. He subconsciously frowned, because at this moment, he could feel a burning aura coming from Qin Yu's body. This wasn't something that came from Qin Yu himself, but something from the outside world. The world in front of him was in a frozen state all year round, and the temperature was terrifyingly low. So how could there be a burning aura? His thoughts raced. As he thought about how Qin Yu had disappeared for a long period of time, Chung Haoran took a deep breath and suppressed his thoughts. As long as he returned to the outside world, his honorable master would naturally take care of everything. Hum, space violently shook. It was like a giant mouth had swallowed them up, submerging them and causing them to vanish from sight. In the depths of the void realm, the phantom of the Sea of Confusion appeared once more, rumbling and roaring. The 9 Dao Masters had already gathered here, their gazes fixed on the altar. All of a sudden, a tremor came from the altar. Following that, several figures appeared. The 9th Dao Master frowned. A gloomy light appeared in his eyes as he looked at Qin Yu, but for some unknown reason, he didn't directly attack him. His eyebrows relaxed, as if nothing had happened at all. Where is Kai Jin? The first Dao Master asked. Reporting to the Dao Master, disciples are waiting at the designated location. Since Kai Jin didn't return, we could only return first. The first Dao Master's disciple respectfully replied. Shua. The Dao Masters looked at the 9th Dao Master. He lightly said, Kai Jin is dead. As he finished speaking, he looked at Qin Yu. Qin Yu stepped forward and cupped his hands together. In this world, Kai Jin chased me and Chung Haoran, but was killed by me. This matter wasn't a secret. When Kai Jin attacked, everyone had seen it with their own eyes. Before Kai Jin had returned, some people had thought of this, but they found it hard to believe. After all, everyone knew that Kai Jin was powerful and difficult to deal with. Killing him wouldn't have been easy. The White Jade Capital cultivators looked at Qin Yu with even more dread in their eyes. Chung Haoran said, Honorable Master, with so many Dao Masters here, disciple Chung Haoran doesn't dare to lie. It was indeed Kai Jin who chased us first. Fellow Taoist Luo Guan had no choice but to resist. I ask Honorable Master and Dao Masters to investigate this matter clearly. The first Dao Master frowned. He swept his eyes over the calm 7th Dao Master and finally looked at the 9th Dao Master. I already know of this matter. Since Kai Jin attacked first, he can only blame himself for being inferior. This matter will be settled here. With that said, the 9th Dao Master turned and left, vanishing from sight. Since Kai Jin had died, the 9th Dao Master naturally wouldn't have obtained anything from this struggle for the world's source energy. He wouldn't lose anything if he left now. This result surpassed everyone's expectations. After all, if the ninth Tao Master was able to raise a disciple like Kai Jin, one could imagine his temperament. Kai Jin had been killed. No matter how they looked at it, this matter shouldn't have ended so easily. Could it be that there was more to it than met the eye? A look of surprise flashed in the seventh Tao Master's eyes. He glanced at Qin Yu, and his mind raced. Just now, he had already prepared himself to argue with the ninth Tao Master, but he didn't expect, he couldn't figure it out. But as a powerhouse on the level of a Tao Master, how shrewd were they? The slight fluctuation of emotion in his eyes was quickly restrained. The ninth Tao Master said, "Since that's the case, I will be leaving first. Farewell." With a flick of his sleeves, an invisible strength wrapped around Qin Yu and Cheng Haoren, causing them to vanish from sight. In the next moment, when their field of vision was restored, the three of them had already arrived in the seventh White Jade capital. The seventh Tao Master turned around. His gaze fell upon Qin Yu. "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, is there anything you can tell me about Cai Jin's death?" Qin Yu had a calm expression. On that day, Cheng Haoren and I entered the world of ice and snow. Kai Jin directly attacked, and there was no conflict between us. As for the reason, I think it must be because of the ninth Tao Master. I would also like to know. Cheng Haoren cupped his hands together. "Honorable Master, that is indeed the case." The seventh Tao Master nodded. "All right, let's talk about this later. Did you obtain any harvests after entering the world connected to the altar?" Cheng Haoren took out a jade bottle and offered it with both hands. He respectfully bowed and said, "Honorable Master, this is the world's source energy that disciple found. The amount is better than expected." The seventh Tao Master took the jade bottle. After sensing it for a moment, he smiled and nodded. "Haoren, you've done well. It's been hard on you." Then, his eyes fell on Qin Yu. Qin Yu thought for a moment, and then revealed an apologetic expression. "Fellow Taoist Cheng, I am truly sorry, but this is an important matter, so I can only be cautious." He cupped his hands together and said, "Tao Master, I have something important to tell you. Please dismiss everyone." The seventh Tao Master frowned. He glanced at Qin Yu and waved his hand. "Haoren, wait outside the hall." "Yes, Honorable Master." Cheng Haoren glanced at Qin Yu. Although he felt a bit depressed, he had an even stronger thought. This was definitely related to the burning hot aura he felt from Luo Guan's body. As he thought, something must have happened while Luo Guan was gone, and it was an extremely crucial moment. Cheng Haoren left. The seventh Tao Master flicked his sleeves, and the entrance to the hall closed on its own, completely isolating himself from the outside world. His eyes were calm. He lightly said, "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, if you have something to say, then say it now." Qin Yu said in a low voice, "Tao Master, do you know that the altar connects to more than a single world?" Shua, the seventh Tao Master, fiercely looked up, a sharp light exploding in his eyes. He stared at Qin Yu and slowly said, "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, how do you know of this?" At this moment, the air seemed to freeze. An invisible strength gathered, pressing down like a mountain, making it hard to breathe. This matter was the greatest secret of the White Jade capital, and only the 9 Tao Masters knew of it. Qin Yu had directly exposed it, so it was natural for the 7th Tao Master to have such a reaction. Qin Yu's expression didn't change. He lightly said, "Tao Master, rest assured, since I have directly spoken of this matter, I have no other intentions." He looked up and met the 7th Tao Master's gaze. "However, I would like to make another transaction with you." The 7th Tao Master said, "Speak." Qin Yu said, "Tao Master, would you like to obtain a complete source of the world?" Or, to put more bluntly, if Tao Master were to obtain a complete source of the world, would you be able to transcend and complete the Tao unification realm? The 7th Tao Master's heart shook, and he could no longer maintain his calm expression. He stared at Qin Yu and slowly said, "Luo Guan, do you know what you were saying?" These words sounded a bit familiar. Qin Yu shook his head inwardly. He suppressed the tumbling thoughts in his mind and said, I am very clear-headed right now, more clear-headed than I have ever been. This is a transaction I wish to make with Tao Master. He lifted a hand and said, I will exchange a complete source of the world with Tao Master for a complete divine kingdom. I need more power of incense flames to help me ignite the Joss flame, great Tao. Tao Master, please do not take any more of the native life forms of the frozen world. They are far too few in number. We must renegotiate the conditions of our cooperation. Qin Yu's last words were impolite, but it was because of this impoliteness that the seventh Tao Master's heart shook even more. The reason for this was simple. If Qin Yu dared to speak to him in such a tone, then he must be confident in himself. A complete source of the world. Even with the seventh Tao Master's shrewdness, he couldn't help but feel his heart heat up. Luo Guan, don't keep me in suspense and get straight to the point. Chapter 1831. The seventh white jade capital. High up in the sky, between the layers of clouds, there stood a great number of towering palaces, giving off the aura of an immortal. Cheng Haoren stood in front of the main hall, his brows furrowed and his face solemn. From time to time, he would glance back at the silent main hall, his heart restless. At this moment, although he held the book in his hand, he couldn't immerse himself in it. Luo Guan, what exactly is he talking about with Master? For hours had passed since he came out, and the hall was still silent. Earlier, his master had told him to wait outside. Cheng Haoren smiled bitterly to himself. He had thought that it would only be a short while. Who knew that it would take so long? But since his master had said so, he could only wait. Senior Brother Cheng. Greetings, Senior Brother Cheng. The cultivators of white jade capital who passed by bowed and greeted him respectfully. Cheng Haoren was one of the most highly regarded disciples of the seventh Tao Master. His cultivation was also extremely powerful, and he was viewed as one of the most likely successors to the position of Tao Master. His status was extremely respected. Cheng Haoren nodded in return. His expression was extremely calm, but his mind wasn't here at all. He was constantly paying attention to the movements in the main hall. Finally, he heard the sound of the hall's doors opening. He turned around to see Qin Yu walk out from the hall. The seventh Tao Master was smiling from ear to ear and sending him off with a friendly demeanor. With a single glance, he could tell that the two of them were chatting happily. Cheng Haoren bowed. Master, Haoren, you're still here? The seventh Tao Master was slightly taken aback. He patted Haoren on the back and said, You've worked hard. Hurry up and get some rest. Just like that, Cheng Haoren looked at Qin Yu and then at his master, who clearly didn't plan on telling him anything. He bitterly smiled inwardly. Yes, master. He turned around and left. The seventh Tao Lord said, Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, what do you think of my disciple? Qin Yu said, Fellow Taoist Cheng is quite good. You will surely have some good fortune in the future. I think so too. The seventh Tao Lord smiled. I'm prepared to hand over the position of Tao Lord to him. However, the prerequisite is that I advance a step further and make room for Haoren. Therefore, I will need fellow Taoist Luo Guan's help in determining when my disciple will be able to achieve good fortune. Qin Yu said, Tao Master, rest assured that I will fulfill my promise as soon as possible. That's good. I'll wait for your good news. Definitely. Shua. Qin Yu shot into the skies. His figure flickered, and he vanished from sight. The first step was successfully completed. It was clear that the seventh Tao Master believed the picture Qin Yu had drawn for him, but he believed that this was also divided into different levels. At most, he was willing to give Qin Yu a chance to prove himself. Therefore, even though the first step was smooth, the next step was the real key. Qin Yu had to obtain the true trust of the seventh Tao Master. Only then would he be able to continue with his plan. Just because he had lured the 9 Tao Masters into a trap didn't mean that he had to rack his brains to scheme against everyone. So long as the 7th Tao Lord set an example, the other Tao Lords would be able to discover the truth of the matter through their own investigations, and they would naturally believe it without a doubt. Thus, obtaining the 7th Tao Lord's trust was the most critical step right now, and he absolutely couldn't allow anything to go wrong. Near the eternal sea, Sea King Island. Bang! Space shook and Chinyu stepped out. As his divine sense swept out, the complexions of countless pirates changed and they fell to their knees. We welcome your excellency, Sea King's return. He had been taken away by cultivators from White Jade Capital, and yet he was still safe and sound. This in itself already proved some things. The matter of His Excellency Sea King killing the East Sea Great Emperor had come to an end. His Excellency Sea King was safe and sound. Just this point alone caused the hearts of countless pirates to shake. Just how strong was His Excellency Sea King? Even when facing White Jade Capital, he was still safe and sound. Black Pearl knelt on the ground and respectfully bowed. Greetings, Your Excellency, Sea King. She wore a thin gauze dress, and her slightly tanned skin exuded a seductive charm. But unfortunately, the little thoughts of this female pirate were nothing more than fleeting clouds in Chinyu's eyes. In this current situation, how could he possibly think about the matters between men and women? Now that I have returned, I will be going into seclusion for a period of time. Pass down the order that no one is to disturb me. After speaking, Chinyu's figure flickered and he vanished from sight. Yes. Black Pearl stood up. She bit her lips, a look of disappointment and helplessness on her face. She had probably been defeated by a smelly man. How infuriating. Elsewhere, in a grand hall on Sea King Island, Chinyu appeared. With a flick of his sleeves, he sealed off the inside and the outside. Hum. With a deep rumbling sound, the Grand Hall's array formation activated and released a powerful aura. Chinyu sat down cross-legged. He flipped his palm, and a jade bottle appeared. When he was at White Jade Capital, the seventh Dao Master had personally handed it to him. This was something Chung Howren had brought back from the heavenly spirit race's frozen world. There was a great deal of heaven and earth source energy sealed within. Little blue lamp, with a loud shout, the phantom of a great sun quietly appeared. Then, a hand reached out and took away the jade bottle. I need some time. After speaking, the great sun phantom vanished from sight. Next, it would refine a world heart. But during this period of time, Chinyu wouldn't be idle. He had to cooperate with the little blue lamp and ensure that everything was flawless. With a thought, the Nine-Realm Holy Land token appeared. He lifted a hand and touched the surface of the token. The token shook and fluctuations were released. Chinyu took out the mountain and river sword and slashed forwards. Wherever the sword edge went, the vibrating ripples vanished. He let go of the mountain and river sword and stepped inside without hesitation. Shwa. In the next moment, his field of vision was restored. Chinyu appeared in the frozen world where the heavenly spirit race was. With a thought, he locked onto his position. Then, he stepped forwards and arrived at the sealed world where the heavenly spirit race was. Outside the tent, the great patriarch was looking at a group of children running through the green grass. He revealed a happy expression and bowed. Greetings, ruler. The children that were laughing and playing all widened their eyes. They looked at Chinyu in front of them with timid expressions. When they saw their parents and elders kneeling on the ground, they also followed suit and prostrated themselves on the ground. Great waves flashed in Chinyu's eyes. Right now, he was struggling to survive. But it wasn't just for himself. For instance, these children in front of him. He had seen their smiling faces today, but outside the enchantment, it was still an icy cold environment that was more than enough to instantly kill him. If he perished here, then everything beautiful would be destroyed in the blink of an eye. Suppressing these thoughts, Chinyu said, Great Patriarch, I have a matter I need to discuss with you. Sir, please follow me. The Great Patriarch entered the Great Patriarch's tent. After the enchantment warmed up, the heavenly spirit race no longer needed to gather together. The Great Patriarch respectfully bowed, his expression solemn and pious. Unsurpassed ruler, your will is the highest standard of the heavenly spirit race. No matter what you need us to do, please feel free to order us. Looking at his appearance, it seemed that even if Chinyu wanted him to commit suicide, The great patriarch wouldn't hesitate at all. Don't worry, this matter isn't difficult. I only need the heavenly spirit race to cooperate with me in putting on a play. Chinyu lifted a hand and placed a finger between the great patriarch's eyebrows. After several breaths of time, he drew back. The great patriarch opened his eyes, his complexion changing. He hesitated for a moment and then looked at Chinyu. Sir Ruler, this isn't difficult, but to you, to be disrespectful, the entire heavenly spirit race wouldn't dare to offend you in the slightest. Chinyu waved his hand. Just do as I say. I naturally won't vent my anger on you. Yes. Remember to keep this a secret. Right now, only you know of this matter. You're not allowed to tell anyone else. After speaking, Chinyu didn't stay for long. He turned and vanished from sight. Then, he appeared in another dwelling place of the heavenly spirit race. His eyes swept over a quiet tent. After a moment of hesitation, he lifted a hand and waved it in front of him. An invisible strength was released. The tent in front of him, as well as the heavenly spirit race members that had been dead for a long time, turned into powder and vanished from sight. The dead were gone, so they should rest in peace. After several steps, Chinyu leapt into the crack in the ground. He opened a channel into the magma world and stepped inside. White Jade Capital. The seventh Tao Master summoned Chung Haoran. He said, Haoran, tell me everything that happened after you entered that world. You're not allowed to conceal anything. Chung Haoran respectfully bowed. Yes, Honorable Master. He didn't conceal anything at all. He recounted everything he knew from beginning to end. When the seventh Tao Master heard that Chinyu had suddenly vanished while Chung Haoran was collecting the world's source energy, his eyes brightened. Disappeared? Are you sure that's an appropriate description? Chung Haoran said, Honorable Master, he did indeed disappear. He earnestly said, although Disciple was busy collecting the world's source energy at the time, my mind was constantly sensing the surroundings in order to avoid being caught off guard. During this process, Disciple didn't sense any aura conflict. Thus, Luo Guan could only have left on his own initiative. After that, Disciple wasn't able to find any traces of Luo Guan in that icebound world. It was only when a month passed and we were about to return that Luo Guan suddenly appeared. Moreover, Disciple felt a burning aura from his body that was contaminated by the outside world. The seventh Tao Master frowned. Contaminated by the outside world? That's right. Chung Haoran said that aura wasn't emitted from Luo Guan's body. But the temperature in that icebound world was extremely low, so it was impossible for such a blazing aura to exist. Thus, Disciple suspects that when Luo Guan disappeared, something must have happened in that world that Disciple doesn't know about. A look of shame appeared on his face. He bowed and said, Honorable Master, please punish me. I followed Luo Guan into the icebound world, but I wasn't able to keep an eye on him. I have betrayed the trust and high regard you have for me. The seventh Tao Master waved his hand. Luo Guan has an incomparably powerful cultivation. He wasn't someone you could keep an eye on. I don't blame you. His thoughts raced as he began to believe everything Luo Guan had said. However, it seemed that Luo Guan had been holding back. For example, the burning aura on his body. It wasn't just that Luo Guan had discovered that the altar was connected to another world, but that he had already entered it. Those were two completely different things. Haoran, you may leave. Remember, do not mention what I asked you today to anyone. Yes, Honorable Master. Chung Haoran bowed respectfully and took 2 steps back. Just as he was about to turn and leave, a look of hesitation appeared on his face. The seventh Tao Master waved his hand. You can't know about this for now. When the time is right, I will naturally tell you. After Chung Haoran left, the seventh Tao Master's eyes flashed with sharpness. Luo Guan was definitely hiding something, and perhaps the ninth Tao Master knew about it. As he thought of this, the seventh Tao Master stood up and took a step forward. He instantly crossed the endless distance and arrived outside the ninth White Jade Capital. Although he had the qualifications to enter directly, the seventh Tao Master chose to stay put. Ninth Tao, Come out and meet with me." His voice was calm as it spread into the white jade capital. However, his voice couldn't be heard by anyone else. Shua, the ninth Tao master, walked out and cupped his hands together. "Seventh Tao, what business do you have with me?" The seventh Tao master directly said, "Luo Guan is of great use to me. I am willing to compensate him for killing Zhuanju." The ninth Tao master frowned. He glanced at him and said, "As I said before, let's forget about this matter." The seventh Tao master fell silent. After a short period of silence, he slowly said, "I want to know why you killed Luo Guan. Was there need?" "I said that Luo Guan was of great use to me." The ninth Tao master said, "I don't like him. Is that reason enough?" The seventh Tao master frowned. "What do you want in exchange?" The ninth Tao master said, "I want to know about the cooperation between you and Luo Guan, seventh Tao." The seventh Tao master was expressionless. "Ninth Tao, I don't understand what you're saying. If that's the case, then there's nothing more between me and you." The ninth Tao master turned around. "I won't be seeing you out." Shua, his figure vanished. The seventh Tao master turned around and returned to the white jade capital. His calm face finally turned gloomy. Zhuanju was difficult to deal with. This was something that all the cultivators in the white jade capital knew. But what they didn't know was that in terms of difficulty, the ninth Tao master was the truly terrifying one. Given the ninth Tao master's temperament, he definitely wouldn't let the matter rest if he discovered a trace of it. This caused the seventh Tao master's heart to burn with anger, and he couldn't help but feel a bit of regret. It seemed like he had a perfect excuse to look for the ninth Tao master, but he still sensed something fishy about it. Something's wrong, the seventh Tao master muttered to himself. He paced back and forth several times, his gloomy expression gradually returning to tranquility. When Zhuanju tried to kill Luo Guan, he must have received instructions from the ninth Tao master. In other words, he had long since noticed Luo Guan. Whether or not he went to the ninth white jade capital this time, the result wouldn't change. The ninth Tao master wouldn't give up so easily. What he called letting bygones be bygones was more like a hastily concluded matter. He didn't want to draw too much attention to the matter of him attacking Luo Guan. Moreover, it was better to sense the ninth Tao master's attention now than to relax his guard. This result was also acceptable. The seventh Tao master paced back and forth several times. Then he suddenly lifted a hand and pointed forwards. Images appeared in space. This was the current scene of Sea King Island. His eyes locked onto the Great Hall where Qin Yu was currently in seclusion. If the seventh Tao master wanted to, he could break through the seal of this hall at any time and see what was happening inside. Moreover, there was a high chance that he wouldn't be discovered. But after hesitating again and again, the seventh Tao master didn't do anything. He flicked his sleeves and dispersed the images in front of him. Everything would have to wait until he obtained the world core that Luo Guan spoke of. If he could really do it, then everything would be fine. Otherwise, he would directly take action to suppress this person and force him to reveal the secrets he was hiding. Half a month later, Sea King Island. Space trembled and Qin Yu stepped out. The mountain and river sword had been waiting for a long time. It slashed down on its own, the aura of annihilation fluctuating. "Little blue lamp," Qin Yu shouted out loud. Quietly, the space in front of him collapsed inwards. It was like a gaping maw had suddenly opened up. "Leave it to me." Qin Yu flicked his sleeves. Countless motes of starlight of different colors appeared in front of him. These motes of light were collected by him. They were the source energies of 9 different worlds. The space collapsed and a suction force spread out, swallowing up all the motes of light. Soon, the edges of the collapsed space violently shook. A fist-sized sphere of light flew out. The core region was like a constantly expanding and contracting heart, constantly beating. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. This was the world core. Chapter 1832. At this time, a feeling of being locked onto and watched suddenly gushed out from the depths of his heart, and the source of this feeling was the constantly shrinking and expanding world heart in front of him. Qin, before you completely condense the world heart, you need to obtain its approval. The little blue lamp's voice sounded out. After a moment of silence, Qin took out the Nine Realms token and placed it in front of the world heart. The light that surged on its surface rapidly dimmed until it was extinguished. What appeared in front of him was a gray stone, unremarkable at all. Qin put away the token and took the stone in his hand. At this time, he felt as if he had grasped the entire world. He could clearly sense the position of the Heavenly Spirit Clan's world. He even had an incomparably strong thought that as long as he crushed this stone, he could destroy the entire world. That's enough, the little blue lamp said. Give the world heart to the seventh Tao Master, and you will naturally obtain his trust. Everything else will proceed as planned. Hold on, Qin said. He stared at the stone in his hand. He was now incomparably sure that this was the true world heart. If he really gave it to the seventh Tao Master, that would be the same as handing over the life and death of the entire century to him. I know that you definitely wouldn't joke about something like this, but you should at least give me a hint. After I hand over the world heart, how will I deal with the seventh Tao Master's revenge? Qin had a dignified expression. If I don't know this, I won't be able to rest easy. The little blue lamp seemed to have already expected Qin to ask this question. Its reply was calm and unperturbed. It's simple. It is because he cannot break this world heart. Qin furrowed his eyebrows. He looked down at the gray world heart in his hand. The feeling this thing gave off wasn't solid at all. He could crush it with just a little bit of strength. It is just an illusion. A true world heart isn't solid at all. At the very least, a Tao Master level powerhouse can casually destroy it. But this world heart is different. What it contains isn't just the source strength of a world. As the little blue lamp finished speaking, its aura vanished from sight. A sharp light flashed in Qin eyes. If that was the case, then there was no problem. The little blue lamp's plan was in truth very simple. It was to win the seventh Tao Master's trust. Although the world heart seemed incomparably weak, it was actually indestructible. With that, even if the matter was exposed, the enraged seventh Tao Master would discover that he was completely powerless against the realm core in his hand. Taking a deep breath, Qin closed his eyes and began to meditate. A day later, after he had fully recovered, he left Sea King Island and arrived outside the seventh White Jade capital. Tao Lord, I'm here. The space around them trembled as the voice of the seventh Tao Lord rang out. Enter. Without any hesitation, Qin stepped forwards. His field of vision twisted, and he appeared in the grand hall. The seventh Tao Master sat on the seat of the host, and his gaze was condescending. His expression seemed calm and relaxed, yet it actually emanated a powerful pressure. The air was filled with traces of an unsettling smell. This caused Qin heart to shiver. He suddenly felt a sense of unease, as well as an intense thought. If he couldn't win the seventh Tao Master's trust this time, then it would be impossible for him to leave this hall unscathed. Greetings, Tao Master. Qin calmly bowed. The seventh Tao Master smiled. Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, there is no need to be so polite. I've already been waiting for many days. I hope that fellow Taoist can bring me a pleasant surprise when you return. Qin said, if I didn't obtain anything, then I wouldn't have returned to the White Jade capital. He flipped his hand and took out the world heart. Tao Master, please take a look at this. The seventh Tao Master's pupil shrank. He subconsciously leaned forward. World heart. Although this gray stone looked incomparably ordinary, the aura it emitted was like a lighthouse in the dark of night to a Tao Master level powerhouse. Not bad. I was lucky enough to not fail you. But I hope that Tao Master will keep your word. Qin lifted his hand, and the world heart flew out. The seventh Tao Master grasped it and grasped it. He focused his divine sense to determine whether it was real or fake. A smile lit up his face. Ha! Good, Luo Guan. I really wasn't wrong about you. The world heart was real, and it came from that frozen world, but the aura of the world heart wasn't pure. The seventh Tao Master turned his hand and grasped the world heart. Then he asked this question. Even if a dead world has begun to revive, there is still too little heaven and earth source energy. It isn't enough to support the condensation of a complete world heart. I had no choice but to take a risk and enter another world connected to the altar. There, I searched for heaven and earth source energy and gathered the source energy of the other worlds. Only then was I able to condense this one. The seventh Tao Master's eyes flashed. This matched up with his previous speculations. Luo Guan really had entered another world connected to the altar. This person was definitely hiding some great secret on his body. For instance, a method to condense a world heart. It had to be known that not even a Tao Master level powerhouse could accomplish such a thing. This matter didn't. It only had extremely high requirements for one's cultivation and also required the approval of the world itself in order to be refined. Luo Guan could do it. Moreover, it was only after he entered the frozen world that the dead world began to revive. The seventh Tao Master's thoughts raced. He smiled and slowly nodded. So that's how it is. Then, I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Luo Guan. I will definitely fulfill my previous promise. He chose to tacitly agree. At least for now, he couldn't form any enmity with Luo Guan. He could only turn a blind eye to these suspicious points. Of course, the reason the seventh Tao Master dared to do this was because he was confident he could control the situation. With the world heart in hand, as long as there were no problems with it, then the life or death of the entire world could be decided with a single thought. Luo Guan might have his own plans, but as long as he smoothly swallowed a complete world source energy, the seventh Tao Master was absolutely confident he could break through the final step of his cultivation and complete the Tao unification realm. The heaven and earth boundary of human cultivators was to transform oneself into the world. After that, he could attempt to achieve the goal of refining 9 white jade capitals regardless of the cost. Or, it would be more accurate to say that he could complete the human cultivation system. This was the wild ambition that generations of cultivators had harbored for countless years. He would replace the blazing sun with the white jade capitals and suppress the infinite heavens. At that time, who in the infinite heavens and infinite worlds would be able to fight him? Even if he faced the unsurpassed blazing sun, he might still be able to put up a fight. Luo Guan might have hidden methods, but his overwhelming strength was enough to turn all schemes and plots into nothing more than a joke. Qin Yu and the seventh Tao Master looked at each other. Both of them smiled, their eyes warm and friendly, but their thoughts were cruel to the extreme. It was only at this moment that both of them were confident they would be the ones laughing in the end. As for what the final outcome would be, only time would tell. Tao Master, there is no time to lose. If you have no objections, let us begin as soon as possible. Qin Yu said in a low voice. The seventh Tao Master smiled. All right. He paused for a moment. However, this matter must be kept secret. In order to prevent any accidents from occurring, I will need to make some preparations. Luo Guan, stay in the white jade capital for now. And at most 1 or 2 days, we can begin. Qin Yu stood up. All right. Then I will wait for the Tao Master's summons. As he left the hall, there were already cultivators of the white jade capital waiting outside. Qin Yu bowed and bowed. Your Excellency Luo Guan, I am here on the Tao Master's orders to bring you to rest. Qin Yu nodded. They flew through layers of clouds and landed outside a group of grand palaces. The white jade capital cultivator who led the way said, Your Excellency Luo Guan, please stay here for the time being. If there is anything you need, you could directly ring the bell in the hall. After speaking, the person bowed and drew back. Qin Yu landed on the clouds. He looked up at the hall in front of him and, as usual, dismissed the beautiful cultivators serving the white jade capital. But this time, he wasn't able to stay quiet for too long. He opened his eyes from his cultivation and looked outside the hall. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Yu opened the door to the hall. Cheng Haoran stood outside, and cupped his hands together. "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, we meet again." Qin Yu said, "Fellow Taoist Chung, is there something you need?" Chung Haoran said, "No, I was just passing through this place and heard that fellow Taoist Luo Guan had arrived, so I came to say hello. While I'm at it, I also want to remind fellow Taoist Luo Guan that no matter what agreement you and Honorable Master have reached, please do your best to fulfill it. Honorable Master's cultivation is transcendent, and he is incomparably strong. Even if fellow Taoist Luo Guan is shockingly strong, I don't think you are willing to withstand the anger of Honorable Master." He faintly smiled and cupped his hands together. "That is all I have to say. Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, please stay here. Farewell." As Qin Yu watched the scholar of white jade capital leave, he furrowed his eyebrows. It wasn't because he had been inexplicably threatened, but because Chung Haoran's behavior wasn't normal. With Chung Haoran's temperament and his usual behavior, it was far too abrupt for him to appear here today and say such words. Just what was Chung Haoran's goal? Qin Yu couldn't come up with an answer. He could only temporarily suppress this thought. Returning to the hall, Qin Yu looked up at the hall where the seventh Tao Master was. Qin Yu didn't believe a single word of what he had said before. As the ruler of White Jade Capital, why would he need to avoid being detected if he mobilized the strength of White Jade Capital? If this was true, then with the seventh Tao Master's cultivation and status, it was simply a joke. Thus, this was only an excuse that the seventh Tao Master had left for Qin Yu. It was a chance for him to test things out and also make arrangements for the future. Any experienced and far-sighted individual wouldn't act hastily. They would definitely make arrangements for the future and even have a contingency plan for dealing with all sorts of unexpected situations. Once they made their final decision, they would begin to act. This should be a very short time. And sure enough, on the next day, Qin Yu received a summons from the seventh Tao Master. "Your Excellency Luo Guan, the Tao Master invites you to the hall." "All right." Qin Yu stood up and left the hall. On this day, an accident occurred in White Jade Capital. It was unknown what had happened to the outsider cultivator Luo Guan. It was unknown why he had angered the Tao Master, but after being suppressed and locked up in a dungeon, a rumor rapidly spread out. It was said that when Luo Guan was collecting the world's source energy, he had secretly tampered with it and kept a large portion of it. This was discovered by the Tao Master and thus ended up in such a state. His words were so convincing that they sounded so confident. And as this news was spreading in White Jade Capital's dungeon, the seventh Tao Master was sitting across from Qin Yu. "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, I am truly sorry, but I did this out of consideration for your safety as well as the confidentiality of this matter. This dungeon is the safest place in White Jade Capital. As long as you stay here, no one will be able to disturb you." The seventh Tao Master smiled, his expression sincere. Qin Yu nodded. "Very well. I will stay in the dungeon." "Ha ha ha. Very well. I knew that fellow Taoist Luo Guan was a broad-minded person and wouldn't hold a grudge against me over something so trivial." The seventh Tao Lord waved his hand and produced the world core. "In that case, let's begin. For a dead world, even if it had been revived, it would still take an extremely long time to restore a complete world source energy. But if there was enough strength from the outside, then this process could be sped up. And White Jade Capital, as a supreme treasure that corresponded to the 9 blazing suns of the world, could accomplish this." Bang! At this time, through the world heart in the seventh Tao Master's hand, a connection was formed between White Jade Capital and the distant icebound world. An incomparably formidable strength from White Jade Capital poured into the world heart. It was like a transfer point that was directly released into the icebound world, the extreme northern snowfield. This was a land of bitter cold all year round. Wind and snow howled and howled, and the air was extremely cold, enough to instantly kill any native life form. But at this moment, accompanied by a deep rumbling sound, the entire snowy plain began to shake. "Kacha! Kacha!" Shattering sounds rang out incessantly. Crack after crack appeared on the snowy plain, extending as far as the eye could see. Heat that hadn't been seen in a long time rose up from these cracks. It carried with it the water vapor that wrapped around the snowfield and rose into the skies. As more and more heat and water vapor gathered, clouds began to appear in the skies above, constantly thickening. Bang! With a roar of thunder, a massive downpour of rain covered the entire icebound snowfield. Water was the source of life. This meant that the icebound world was beginning to accelerate its awakening. Within the enchantment, the great clan elder and all of the heavenly spirit race stared with wide eyes at the pitter-pattering raindrops above their heads. The enchantment resisted the cold, but it didn't stop the rain from falling. The entire mountain camp was instantly covered in a curtain of rain. "It's raining." A heavenly spirit race member knelt on the ground. He reached out a trembling hand to catch the raindrops. This was the first heavy rain since the great calamity of the past. His Excellency Ruler, it must be His Excellency Ruler. He is saving the entire world, saving all of us. Amidst the cheers, all of the heavenly spirit race members knelt on the ground, devoutly chanting and praying. At this time, they didn't discover that as the rain fell, these raindrops also contained traces of divine sense from the outside world. This was the seventh Tao Master. Through the world heart, he had penetrated his will into this world. As the raindrops fell on the bodies of the heavenly spirit clan members, a wisp of divine consciousness silently entered their bodies and flipped through the memories of the heavenly spirit clan members. Like this, the seventh Tao Master confirmed that he had finally discovered Luo Guan's secret. No wonder he could freely enter and exit the various worlds connected to the altars. No wonder he could condense a world heart that even Tao Master level powerhouses were helpless against. Ruler, or it could be said that he had obtained the inheritances left behind by the original rulers of these worlds. In the dungeon, the seventh Tao Master opened his eyes. His gaze flashed as he looked at Qinyu. "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, everything is progressing smoothly. You really didn't lie to me." Qinyu said, "Of course. But I also ask that Tao Master abide by your promise and do your best to rescue the native life forms of these worlds. I need them to become my most loyal believers and help me ignite the great path of incense." "Of course. I will definitely not go back on my word," the seventh Tao Master said with a smile. At this time, he felt that he had seen through all of Qin Yu's schemes. Perhaps when Luo Guan first discovered the relationship between himself and the various worlds connected to the altars, he had also been excited. But soon, he discovered that it was impossible to obtain 9 worlds with his own strength, especially when the White Jade Capital had already discovered the altars. And once this matter was exposed, and he had to face the 9 White Jade Capitals, all that awaited him was death. Thus, Luo Guan chose to settle for the next best thing. He abandoned his status as a ruler of a world and instead sought the help of the native life forms. As long as he could rescue them from the calamity of world destruction, he could obtain their most devout faith and use it to ignite the great path of incense. Everything could be explained and explained in a reasonable and logical manner. Chapter 1833. After the seventh Tao Master left, the only one left in the dungeon was Qinyu. A smile lifted the corners of his lips. It was progressing smoothly. The Heavenly Spirit Clan's icebound world was currently recovering at an accelerated rate. However, because the method used to refine the world heart was different from the orthodox method, the icebound world wasn't the only world connected to the icebound world. It was like a wide river with 8 small branches. Each branch didn't look big, but it was enough to take half of the water in the river. Without a doubt, this water came from the 7th White Jade Capital. It wasn't obvious at the moment, but the 7th Tao Master would soon discover that the cost of reviving the world of ice would be terrifying. It was so terrifying that the power of the White Jade Capital couldn't do it. At that time, would he choose to give up on what he had already invested, or would he find a way to continue investing? A bright glow flashed through Qin Yu's eyes. At that time, the seventh Tao Lord wouldn't be able to make the decision. The ninth white jade capital. The ninth Tao Lord was sitting cross-legged in a palace in the clouds. He was frowning slightly, and there was a look of contemplation on his face. He was thinking about the matter regarding Qin Yu. News had spread from the seventh white jade capital that Qin Yu had been suppressed by the seventh Tao Master because he had intercepted the world essence. However, the ninth Tao Lord didn't believe it at all. It seemed that the seventh Tao Lord had already made his move. A solemn expression appeared on the ninth Tao Master's face when he thought of this, and a trace of urgency arose in his heart. Back in the Void Realm, when he first saw Qin Yu, he sensed something different. Thus, this was the reason why he had given the order to capture Qin Yu and kill him in an attempt to obtain something hidden on his body that couldn't be sensed. This was also to prevent Qin Yu from helping the ninth Tao Lord become the biggest winner. Although he failed in the end and perished because of it, the ninth Tao Master was able to sense it even more clearly when Qin Yu returned. He was finally able to determine what that aura on Qin Yu's body was. It was a connection with the altar, as if Qin Yu was the true master of this altar. That was the reason why the ninth Tao Master had directly probed seven Daos when he had first arrived. Even though seven Daos hadn't revealed any abnormalities, the ninth Tao Master was even more certain that there was some sort of transaction between him and Qin Yu. Otherwise, with Qi Dao's patience, he wouldn't have rashly paid a visit. Suppress the dungeon. It was probably to control Luo Guan to prevent any accidents. Such cautiousness only proved that the seven paths were plotting something big. Men, the ninth Tao Master suddenly spoke. A white jade capital cultivator entered the hall and bowed. Please give me your orders. Send a message to the 8 white jade capitals. I've made some new discoveries regarding the sacrificial altar. Please come to the white jade capitals. The ninth Tao Master's eyes flickered. If any of the Tao Lords find it inconvenient to travel, please inform them that they can meet in the white jade capital. Yes, Pathmaster. The white jade Jing cultivator took a few steps back, turned around, and left quickly. He quickly spread the news. The seventh white jade capital. After the Tao Lord heard the report, he waved his hand and sent them away. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. He knew very well that the 9 Daos were probing him. It seemed like he had no choice but to go this time. Otherwise, given Jiu Dao's temperament, he would definitely descend with the other Tao Lords, which would make it even easier for him to slip up. With a thought, the 7th Tao Lord sent out his will, and soon a respectful voice could be heard from outside the hall. Master, disciple has arrived. Come in. Chung Haoran quickly walked into the hall. He bowed once more. Disciple greets Master. The 7th Tao Master nodded. I have been invited to head to the 9th White Jade Capital. I do not know when I will return. You will temporarily control the White Jade Capital's Great Array formation. As he spoke, he lifted a hand and grasped forwards. A ring appeared. The surface of this object seemed to surge with clouds and mist. It shined with light. It was extraordinary. Chung Haoran received the ring with both hands, a solemn expression on his face. Master, this is the 7th Tao Master waved his hand. There is no need to ask. With this ring in hand, you can control the White Jade Capital's Great Array formation. Guard the dungeon well. Before I return, no one is allowed to enter. Yes. Chung Haoran bowed. Shua, the 7th Tao Master stood up. He stepped forwards and vanished from sight. Within the hall, Chung Haoran slowly stood up after several breaths of time. He looked at the place where his master had vanished, and then at the ring in his hand. A complex look of fear and alarm appeared in his eyes, but soon it became firm. He took a deep breath, turned, and walked out. When he arrived outside the hall, Chung Haoran lifted the ring in his hand. The White Jade Capital's Great Array formation began to revolve. With a deep rumbling sound, it erupted in the clouds. Countless golden runes appeared in the air, covering the entire White Jade Capital and turning it into an impregnable fortress. Even a Tao Master-level powerhouse would find it difficult to break through in a short period of time. Shua, shua, space shook and several figures appeared. As they saw the ring in Chung Haoran's hand, their complexions changed. Protectors, there is no need to panic. Master has been invited to the 9th White Jade Capital and has asked me to temporarily control the Great Array Formation. In order to prevent any accidents from occurring, I have activated the Array Formation to its full potential. Chung Haoran smiled, his voice calm. So that's how it is. Since this is the Tao Master's order, there's no problem. The protectors cupped their hands together and left. They didn't doubt Chung Haoran's words at all. After all, he was the disciple that the Tao Master trusted the most and held in high regard. Everything he said was normal. After the protectors left, Chung Haoran stepped out and returned to his residence. He dismissed all the attendants and maids and entered the hall with a calm expression. With a flick of his sleeves, he closed the doors. Standing in the hall, a trace of struggle and hesitation appeared on his face. But in the end, Chung Haoran took a deep breath and lifted a hand. Space shook and a black mask appeared. Red flames danced in its empty eye sockets, and its aura was strange to the extreme. Have you thought it through? The mask's mouth moved and a deep and low voice spread out. It was calm and full of texture, instantly calming one's heart. Compared to its appearance and aura, it was like the heavens and earth. Chung Haoran sneered. I still don't believe everything you said. The mask chuckled. After 7 Daos left, you opened the Great Array Formation. This in itself proves the hesitation and doubts in your heart. So, there is no need to deceive yourself. The truth is right in front of you. Want to know once you try? Chung Haoran clenched his teeth. What should I do? Very simple. The mask's voice grew even calmer. This mirror will reflect your true self. Look carefully and see exactly who is being reflected in it. As it spoke, the mask spat out a copper mirror the size of a palm. As it floated in front of Chung Haoran, it began to expand until it was as tall as a person. It hovered there in midair, reflecting Chung Haoran's image. Chung Haoran trembled, and his eyes went wide as he looked at the mirror. His breathing grew ragged and his face paled. Right now, the reflection of Chung Haoran on the surface of the mirror looked exactly like him. However, his temperament was completely different. His eyes were ancient and sharp, as if they could see through all things. His face was as calm as an ancient well, but there was a trace of indifference and callousness in it. He stood there in the mirror, staring coldly into Chung Haoran's eyes. Chung Haoran's heart filled with coldness that slowly invaded his entire body, making him feel like he was about to freeze. The person in front of him was him, but at the same time, it wasn't him. That was because Chung Haoran was incomparably familiar with those eyes, his master. It was his master. At this moment, Chung Haoran was dripping with sweat. No matter how much he tried to control himself, he couldn't stop his body from shaking. The truth was right in front of him. He really had been parasitized by his master. As long as his master willed it, he could do the same thing as that pirate Han, Shuesheng, on Sea King Island. He would instantly lose everything and become an incarnation of his master. But his master's incarnations eventually vanished without a trace. No one knew where they went, but Chung Haoran absolutely didn't want to be able to personally experience it and determine where they went. The mask opened his mouth and swallowed the mirror. He slowly said, "The truth is always cruel, but this is the truth. It is placed in front of you, and even if you don't want to see it, you can. So now, I will ask you again. Chung Haoran, are you willing to be a puppet in the hands of your master? A puppet that can be erased at any moment?" The temple fell silent. Chung Haoran lowered his head and gripped the book at his waist. His knuckles turned white, causing the book to distort. At this moment, countless memories appeared in his mind. His master had taken care of him when he was a child. He had carefully taught him, guiding him step by step on the road of cultivation. In the depths of his heart, Chung Haoran even viewed his master as a father, the person he respected the most in his life. But now, all of these warm memories were torn apart by the cold reality. From the very beginning, he had been nothing more than an avatar that his master had raised. As long as there was an opportunity, he would be activated without hesitation and his existence would be erased. Then, what was his life? Chung Howard took a deep breath and then exhaled. He looked up at the black mask in front of him. It was strange and fierce, and it exuded a restless aura. But now, he had no other choice. "Can you help me?" The mask smiled. "Of course, I can let you live on as a true person. But there's a price to pay. Speak. Go to the dungeon and find Luo Guan." Chung Howard stood up and walked out. Okay. His face was pale, and he had a wooden expression. But there were flames burning deep in his eyes. Outside the dungeon, security was tight. Just as Chung Howard appeared, he was stopped by someone. "Senior apprentice Brother Chung, the Dao Master has ordered that the dungeon will be closed for the time being. No one is allowed to enter or leave." Two white jade kings. The cultivators had dignified expressions. Chung Howard lifted his hand and took out the ring. "Before Honorable Master left, he ordered me to take charge of White Jade Capital. Draw back." This. The two cultivators revealed awkward expressions. Chung Howard looked up, his eyes icy cold. "I will take responsibility for all consequences to Honorable Master. If you don't draw back, then don't blame me for being impolite." "Yes." The two white jade capital cultivators bowed and drew back. Whether it was his status or the jade ring in his hand, Chung Howard wasn't someone the two of them could provoke. If they stubbornly tried to stop him, no matter what happened in the end, they wouldn't have a good ending. Chung Howard stepped into the dungeon. In the quiet and spacious corridors, only his footsteps echoed in the air. Pa, pa. Without stopping, Chung Howard arrived at the deepest depths of the dungeon. He stopped outside a cell and frowned. He lifted his hand and took out the ring. The dungeon seal immediately opened. He pushed open the door and walked in. As his eyes met Qin Yu's, Chung Howard's lips moved. He cupped his hands together and said, "Fellow Taoist Luo Guan, I've disturbed you." Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows inwardly, but his expression was calm. "Fellow Taoist Chung, you shouldn't have appeared here." Chung Howard said, "I had no choice but to do so." He lifted a hand and pointed a finger. Space shook and the black mask appeared. It turned around and the blood-red flames in its empty eye sockets locked onto Qin Yu. "Luo Guan." A calm voice came from the mouth of the mask. Qin Yu frowned. He glanced at the pale Chung Howard who had his head lowered and was silent. "Who are you?" "Who I am is not important. What is important is the strength contained in this mask. If it were to explode here, it would be enough to instantly kill you." Qin Yu's frown deepened. But he didn't doubt these words. This was because as the voice fell, the blood-red flames deep within the mask's eye sockets suddenly throbbed, releasing an extremely cruel aura. It was like an abyss of annihilation was hidden within. Once it erupted, it would be enough to destroy all things in the world. "Chung Howard," Qin Yu shouted out loud. Chung Howard shivered. He looked at Qin Yu and said, "I'm sorry, but I have no other choice. I don't want to die." The black mask said, "Answer my question and there will be no accidents. You can all live on." The little blue lamp's voice sounded out in his mind. I confirmed it. It is the 9th Dao Master. It really was him. When Qin Yu saw this mask, he felt a trace of dread and familiarity. Although this was different from what he had planned, it seemed that this variable could be used better. It wasn't a bad thing. His thoughts raced. Qin Yu took a deep breath and said, "All right." The black mask smiled. "Smart." It went straight to the point. "What sort of deal did the 7th Dao Master make with you?" "To tell the truth, I don't have much time and I don't have much patience. You must remember this, Luo Guan." Qin Yu fell silent. The black mask's aura was tyrannical. "I'll speak." Qin Yu's complexion was ugly. He slowly said, "I made an agreement with the Dao Master. I will borrow the strength of the White Jade Capital to help the frozen world recover. Finally, I will assist the 7th Dao Master in obtaining the complete source of the world." "You are lying." The black mask's voice was icy cold. The crimson flames in its eye sockets nearly flowed out. The complete source of the world can only be obtained after the world recovers. Not to mention how you can help the frozen world recover. Once it recovers, the world will awaken, and no one will be able to seize the world's source. Otherwise, they will suffer a backlash. Chinyu said in a low voice, "I am speaking the truth." He lifted a hand, and the Nine Realms token appeared in his palm. The black mask stared at it. "This is something related to the altar. Luo Guan, you are the master of that altar." Chinyu said, "The altar deep in the void realm isn't just connected to the frozen world. I would like to ask, Ninth Tao Master, do you also wish to obtain a complete source of the world?" Cheng Haoran's eyes widened. The Ninth Tao Master. He looked at the black mask, shock on his face. "Luo Guan, you really are a smart person. I like to deal with smart people." The black mask slowly said, admitting his identity. "But I'm more curious. With the Seventh Tao Master's cautious temperament, how did you win his trust?" Chinyu said, "It's very simple. I condensed a world heart and gave it to the Seventh Tao Master." "World heart!" The black mask shouted out loud. The blood-red flames in its eyes rose. It stubbornly stared at Chinyu and then at the Nine Realms token in his hand. After several breaths of time, it slowly said, "Now, I'm a little interested in what you said. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.